Are you tired of being so confused? You feel like you're more fucked up than the lies on the evening news. Well, just step right in. We can talk about it all as friends. And if you want, we can hug and kiss and make up for the party ends. Agree or disagree, start offering me. 'Cause I'm everything you want, damn sure what you need. I won't tell no lies, back up all the facts with truth. And if you can't get down with that, you must be somebody's dude.
Hey, Hogs Twins here. Check out our friend Matthew Spirit at his podcast at The Dumb Show and his website, don'tunfriendme.com. Yeah.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Don't Unfriend Me show. Good to have you here tonight. We are going to do part 2 of the Tucker Carlson show on Fox News. Now, this has been getting a lot of anger and animosity. Hate leads to anger. Anger leads to frustration. Frustration leads to the dark side. Yes, it does. And I've watched it again. I took the time. It was a crazy night. We had 560 people on. I imagine more are going to be on tonight. We're ever going to 130 on. This is Crush City. So thanks. Like, share, subscribe, do all that type of stuff. We'll start it in a second. It's recording right now. I'm not going to leave you high and dry. But I put a disclaimer last night's show and some people got upset. They're like, oh, well, you know, Matt believes what he believes. Listen, just because I don't agree with everything Tucker Carlson says doesn't necessarily mean that I don't like Tucker Carlson, or just because I agree with some things that he says doesn't mean I like Tucker Carlson. I don't make these binary choices on people. I can disagree with people and still appreciate who they are in their opinion. I have many friends I disagree with. Tucker Carlson is not one of them. He's not my friend, but I will go ahead and broadcast his show because it's newsworthy and it's important. Now, last night, his opening statement, and I want to make mine, in no way, shape, or form, the broadcast that I'm going to show from Fox News are the opinions expressed by Don't Unfriend Me. We may share some similarities, but overall, this is their opinion, and I'm simply broadcasting and reporting on the news. That way, I don't get deplatformed. It's important to understand. A lot of people are like, oh, all you care about is money. No, this is a lot of work. And all of this is mine. It's not funded by anyone else. It's my money. It's my time. And damn it, I'm going to protect it. Now, the original statement by Tucker, I didn't like and I didn't love. It wasn't my, when he's talking about the election and he says the election was swollen. The video shows nothing of that. It's not even on topic. So it's frustrating that he throws the dog whistle and the bone to a lot of the Trump supporters. I think that was a little disingenuous. That's just my personal opinion, but fine. Now, the rest of it, I thought it was exceptionally well done. I don't think it disproves that there was violence in January 6th. I think everyone knows that. I think everyone knows that there was a peaceful rally there. And then there were also some knuckleheads who got out of hand, got riled up, and did some things that they shouldn't have. Now, I think all three of those things can be simultaneously true without disproving any of it false. There was video I hadn't seen before. I'm excited to kind of get and dig deeper into some of the interviews that he's doing with Capitol Police tonight and exposing a little bit more of this. But here's the thing. The liberals are melting down over this. They're like, this is a part of national security. How dare you release this? And the only thing I heard when I heard that was, it's not that it's national security. It's how dare you release something that contradicts what we allowed to be released. And to me, that immediately makes me want to step on the gas and go, Tucker, go. Not because he's trying to subvert democracy and he's Russia. That's not it. It's that the narrative that came out in regards to just a few things that he went over last night contradict and also put in the spotlight that Democrats modified a lot of this and cherry picked and edited like they hired Michael Moore. To me, that's absolutely, when you're doing a trial, when you're doing an investigation, not a trial, but when you're doing an investigation and you have an oversight committee and they're fabricating evidence, That needs to be known by the people. So we're going to dive into it. We've got enough on. Holy crap. Do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done that, please. This is the Don't Unfriend Me show. That was from another show. I'm just stoked to see so many people on. Let's see. Matthew Spear is my name. Kicking ass and chewing bubblegum is my game, and I'm all out of gum. So here we go with no further ado. Let's get into it. And you can stop by thedumbshow.com at any time. And it's kind of funny because all my stuff's not working tonight. All right, let's get to this and let's listen to what Tucker Carlson has to say about January 6th, part 2 or part due. And I'll be commentating throughout. By the way, one more thing. This isn't a cable show. There might be some ads that pop up through Facebook or YouTube, number 1 and 2. Second, I'm going to talk throughout this thing, and I will pause and we will play it in its entirety. But don't sit here and tell me don't talk over Tucker. There are important parts, and then there are parts that we've heard 1,000 times before. If you haven't heard it before and you really want to hear every word that Tucker says, you're probably going to want to drop off this channel and go somewhere else. I'm just going to be transparent. But I will do my best. Now, occasionally we get trolls here. I do address everyone in the audience. I will be speaking to the audience. It's something that most hosts don't do. I do that, and I always have, and that's what makes our show great. Let's get to it, and thanks for me allowing me to do all the stuff. In a second. Got to get the right window. What happened to all my windows? Come on. All right. Almost. No, this one. Got 17 windows. Can you believe this? All right, here we go. Let's rock and roll.
I don't bow down to the crazies. How did Cat Lady even get on that board? Exactly. Cat Lady guilted us to put her on that board, and look what she did with the power. She's trying to cut out the Christians. John from Tampa, Jesse, as a gray-haired, frumpy dresser, you make me uncomfortable. Please wear a hat and overcoat. Now I feel like a flasher if that's all I'm wearing. That would be offensive.
You got to love Jesse Waters. Who doesn't love Jesse Waters?
Harvey
Even the
from
left
Virginia,
doesn't. They don't.
maybe
Well, a little bit.
Could use his powers to fix the headliner of his car. That's all for tonight. DVR, the show. Tucker's up next. And always remember, I'm Waters, and this is my world.
Yeah, Chris, and absolutely they threatened Tucker, and of course they did. McConnell wasn't any better.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Last night we aired video from surveillance cameras on Capitol Hill. That video was recorded 26 months to the day before, January 6, 2021. And for 26 months, that footage was held from the American public. The January 6th committee made certain. Now, the Justice Department also kept a lid on that video footage. And in fact, in some cases, DOJ did not share it with criminal defendants who'd been charged on January 6th in violation of their constitutional rights. So we felt it was a public service to bring what we could to you. There was no justification for keeping this secret any longer, and a powerful argument to be made that sunlight is always and everywhere the best disinfectant. And in fact, because it was video evidence, it is to some extent self-explanatory. Anyone can look at the tape and decide what he or she thinks of it. So the tape we showed last night indicated very clearly that Capitol Hill police, in some cases, escorted protesters through the Capitol as if they were giving a tour. They did that with Jacob Chansley, the so-called QAnon shaman. At one point, they even tried to open locked doors on Chansley's behalf. Chansley was sentenced to 4 years in prison for his crimes in the Capitol on January 6th. And the video we showed you last night raises the obvious question,
Hi, Diane. Good evening.
On what grounds? The video I showed you last night also showed that Officer Brian Sicknick was not beaten to death with a fire extinguisher by protesters on January 6th, as the media and Liz Cheney so often claimed.
So real quick, a lot of people are like, well, Tucker's 9 minutes into his monologue. He hasn't started anything new. I think it's really important for everyone to understand is that he has to do cleanup on aisle 6. He said some things last night that were no offense to anyone here, whether you disagree, we can have that conversation. My phone number is right here. You can call me when the show's over or during if you want, and we can talk about it. But they were incontrovertibly false. He made some statements that were conjecture and based on supposition. He's got to be careful. If you're reporting the news, editorialization really isn't the time to be doing that. You can do that on your show 364 days out of the year, or 363, not tonight, not last night. This should be factual reporting based upon the video evidence that he got. So right now he's recapping and he's cleaning it up for the lawyers, for Fox News, and he's making it sound less of editorialization and more factual reporting, investigative reporting. And that's what he needs to do. He needs to stay out of the muck and the fray and stop making this about him and his agenda and make it about the American people, because that's what it's supposed to be about. I want to clarify that. I'm not Tucker. I'm not his producers. I don't know this to be true. I just know this because it makes a lot of sense. And hopefully you feel the same way.
Walking around the building, apparently in good health, after he was supposedly killed. We showed you that video. You can make of it what you will. We also showed you a video that proves Ray Epps, the mysterious protester who encouraged others to breach the Capitol, lied to the January 6th committee about where he was on that day. But for some reason, the committee protected him anyway. He was not considered an insurrectionist. He was their ally. So once again, you can draw whatever conclusions you like.
B, this is not going to be about you. You did it last night. You do it again tonight. You only got yelled at. You don't know what yelling is. If you're going to sit here and you're going to cry already, you didn't get yelled at. You made comments and you're like, oh, I'm just kidding. That's not the way this works. You don't get to go ahead and pull the I'm just kidding card. We're not 2-year-olds. This isn't the playground. If you say something, put your big boy or big girl pants on and own it. My job wasn't to disseminate and dissect what Tucker Carlson said last night. It was to report it. And we're doing the same thing tonight. And I will dissect what he says like I always have in regards to the election, in regards to January 6th and everything else. If you're expecting that, turn it off and come back tomorrow.
Whatever conclusions you like from that video, we have ours and we shared them with you. But it's really beyond debate that it is good for this country.
No,
for
just
Americans
stop yapping. Stop chirping and listen. That would be nice.
People in charge have talked about January 6th every day since it happened for 26 months. And so at some point, the evidence should be presented to the public. In free countries, governments do not lie about protests as a pretext to gain more power for themselves. They don't selectively edit videos for propaganda services and then lie about them in fake hearings and show trials. But that's exactly what happened. And every member of Congress should ask why that happened. But Democrats in the Senate, the Democratic leader in the Senate,
God,
Chuck
someone
Schumer,
ban
is
this
not
fucking
asking
guy.
why.
I'm done already
Instead,
with him.
Chuck Schumer went on the Senate floor today to
Censor your free
explode.
speech.
And
Just
to
stop
say
fucking
that
distracting the
showing that
show.
Video, evidence of wrongdoing by the federal government, including the security forces, the police department that Nancy Pelosi personally controlled, letting the public see any of that is a threat to democracy. Watch.
Last night, millions of Americans tuned in to one of the most shameful hours we have ever seen on cable television. Fox News host Tucker Carlson ran a lengthy segment last night arguing the January 6th Capitol attack was not a violent insurrection. I don't think I've ever seen a primetime cable news anchor manipulate his viewers the way Mr. Carlson did last night. I don't think I've ever seen an anchor treat the American people and American democracy with such disdain.
There's nothing that shameful that has ever appeared on American television in the history of the medium. And so, on the basis...
Except for Russian collusion for 4 years, right? Chuck Schumer casually and all of the media moguls, along with Mitch McConnell, Senate Majority Leader, our Minority Leader, ultimately say, and don't say the quiet part out loud, is the media lied about Russian collusion for 4 years. 42 million on the Mueller investigation, wiretapped, made up about P-tapes, used a foreign national and a foreign asset with no discovery. And all of this is casually forgotten. Let's not talk about BLM also with peaceful protests and everything else. I love you, son. Have a good night's sleep. Yeah, quickly.
I used to be on page 4
Of that, the self-evident outrage of showing the public video that it paid for and has a right to see, Chuck Schumer called for the censorship of that video. Any information
Andrea, welcome from
was
Ohio.
accurate. The damages a storyline his party constructed and used must be squelched. And Schumer was explicit on that point. Because that video contradicted lies told by the Democratic Party, Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, Chuck Schumer demanded that our bosses pull this show off the air.
He's going to come back tonight with another segment. Fox News should tell him not to. Fox News, Rupert Murdoch, tell Carlson not to run a second segment of lies. I urge Fox News to order Carlson to cease propagating the big lie on his network and to level with their viewers about the truth. The truth.
So just so everyone understands, there's only one government agency that has the power to really impact media and free press and what they say, and that's the FCC. That's it. There's no other organization that can tell Fox or MSNBC or CNN to cease and desist and not broadcast something that's not based on national security, unless it is a national security issue. Then there's other agencies that can get involved. But predominantly for stuff like this, that's already been cleared by the government to be released, cleared by the Capitol Police, Fox News did its job. Tucker did its job. He said and got permission to release this. And for Schumer to sit up here and actually call foul really is a temper tantrum. Fox worked backwards on this. They didn't go forward. They didn't launch this and then go ahead and get permission. They didn't ask for forgiveness rather than permission. They did everything correctly. They checked every box, and Tucker didn't break any rules. This is Chuck Schumer trying to keep the lies that the Democrats said, and they did say some lies in regards to this. They did manipulate video. They did fabricate things. And Tucker called them out on this. And this is the Democrats knowing that that thread is being pulled, and they're doing whatever they can do to cut it so it doesn't unravel. Not everything that Tucker said last night was true, but not everything that Schumer is saying now is true also. And that's the problem with this. It's very rarely so black and white. It's never binary. Schumer knows what the Democrats did, and it's opening up for investigations against this, for the own Republican-led committee against the committee that was supposed to investigate J6. It's a quagmire.
Behind the efforts to mislead the public, conduct like theirs is just asking for another January 6th to happen.
It's a threat to democracy. Pull him off the air. A couple of obvious observations. You don't often see the Senate Majority Leader openly call for censorship on the floor of the Senate, as if that was totally normal and didn't contradict the spirit and the letter of the First Amendment. But of course it does. But what's really happening here, what you're seeing is hysteria. The overstatement, the crazed hyperbole, the red-in-the-face anger. What is that? Well, it's not outrage. Of course, it's fear. It's panic. Those videos, which we did not retouch, which we brought to you after running everyone by the Capitol Police to make certain that we didn't imperil anybody. We told you that.
Peg, I'll get
night.
to your comment if
Those
you're still on. Just hang tight.
Touch a nerve because they're a threat to the lies that Chuck Schumer has been telling for the last 26 months. And not just Chuck Schumer. We should also tell you that Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, was joined in this outrage by the Senate Minority Leader. And that would be a Republican, Mitch McConnell. And they were joined by a cascade of other Republicans, Tom Tillis from North Carolina, Mitt Romney from Utah, all sharing the same outrage.
All rhinos showed up.
From this, we learn two things. One, you're getting close to what they really care about. And you have to ask yourself, why? Why is it so important that they would degrade themselves by telling such obvious lies and calling for censorship? Why? What are they trying to protect? That might be worth exploring, and we plan to. And the second thing that we learned from this is that they're on the same side. The Senate Majority Leader joins the Senate Minority Leader.
Uniparty.
Tom Tillis, Mitt Romney. They're all on the same side. So it's actually...
All right. So listen, this is part of the monologue. So we're going to continue to move forward with this. Peg says, if Trump didn't have a pity party, then none of this would have happened. Tucker needs, okay, so the first statement is just obligatory and that gets thrown out because that's speculative and personal opinion. But I agree. There's times when Donald Trump has whined a little bit with his cheese. I'll give you that. Not a little bit, a lot of bit. I'll give you that much, Peg. Okay. Still an obligatory statement. Tucker needs to say what everyone knows, that it's Trump's fault people died and people are jailed. No. If you're going to say that and you're going to make that comparative analysis, that's fine. But what we're not going to do is whataboutism, right? So I won't do that to you. I'm not going to say, well, what about? What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a comparative analysis based upon the previous 4 years and the last 2 years of the presidency from Trump and posthumously after with Joe Biden. Okay? Is that fair? Great. Do you feel the same way about BLM? Do you feel the same way about the 5 Dallas police officers slain under Obama's watch? Do you feel that the political controversy in regards to going to the funeral and then going to BLM events at the same time was controversial? Do you believe that instigated? Do you believe the conversations that Obama had on the pulpit and spoke about the police and how dangerous the police were with black unarmed teenagers, which is a complete fallacy and lie, propagated some of the largest deaths we've seen, 430 some odd police officers slain. Between the years of 2016, 17, and 18, we saw double and triple the amount of officers slain. Do you consider that to be Donald Trump's fault? Do you consider the BLM riots that happened under Joe Biden to be his fault? Did he create insurrection when they stormed the anteroom chambers, when they went after Kavanaugh, when they went after Amy Coney Barrett? Do you consider that an insurrection? In Oregon, when they went ahead and attacked the police departments and the federal buildings, is that an insurrection because that's government? You have to be very careful with your language. If you're going to hold a president accountable for everything that people do, then unfortunately, every single person in the world should be in prison, because that means anything you say, people do not have the free will to go ahead and defy it or do something against it other than what you say. It's a ridiculous notion. Now, that doesn't even go into the speech that Donald Trump had, the 2 hours that this riot, insurrection, whatever you want to call it, already was taking place, and he wasn't even done speaking yet. You can go ahead and look at his Twitter account when he called them to stand down. You can go ahead and look at the other things he tried to do, but the speech that you're saying is your interpretation of the speech. That is purely supposition. In no way, shape, or form did he say to do what happened on that day. Now, Donald Trump has said 1,000 other times, you need to stand up, you need to fight, you need to get angry, we need to come together. Those things are used by Democrats all the time. In fact, Maxine Waters has said it. Joe Biden has said it. Yet you don't go ahead and challenge them for insurrection when people burn down cities and towns. It's absolutely disingenuous for you to sit here and say those things. You know and I know that Donald Trump isn't responsible for January 6th any more than Obama is responsible for the Dallas officers slain, or what happened at Vegas, or Joe Biden, or what happened to Steve Scalise. The only people responsible for those type of things are the people who perpetrated the crime. That's what's wrong with this generation and your party, is you don't hold people accountable. All you want to do is go ahead and say Orange Man is bad. Unfortunately, that stuff doesn't stick anymore.
Here you have people with shared interests. The open borders people. The people like Mitch McConnell, who are living in splendor on Chinese money. The people who, underneath it all, have everything in common, are all aligned against everyone else. And that would include almost all news organizations in this country as well. And so if you're watching this, it might be kind of interesting to keep a list. Because one thing we learned today is that they're all in agreement with each other. They kind of outed themselves. They sort of showed their membership cards in whatever club this is to the public. So keep a list. If you want to know who's actually aligned, despite the illusion of partisanship, we found out today. We have a little more tape for you tonight. So if you take 3 steps back.
Amy, I appreciate you moderating, but if people want to leave angry faces, they can. They can be angry. I'm not worried about that. We've got plenty of people on. Let's just worry about the people who are trolling and trying to distract from the conversation, or here just to go ahead and leave a one line. I don't want to censor anybody. I want them to have an opinion, but if they're disrupting chat and they're being, You know, the people who called Nazis and the people, those type of people need to go. But if someone's leaving angry faces, that's fine. I don't care. But if you could counteract them with hearts, likes, and laughs and all of that, I would appreciate it, considering it helps the algorithm. Thank you.
So if you take 3 steps back, you may notice that the one person, really, who was never blamed for anything that happened on January 6th was the very same person who was in charge of the police force, the Capitol Hill Police, that was charged with securing safety on January 6th. And that person was Nancy Pelosi. So if there was a security failure on January 6th, and demonstrably there was, that was probably Nancy Pelosi's fault. And after looking at thousands of hours of footage, we came to the conclusion that many others have reached, which is the Capitol Police were not prepared for what happened. And that's fascinating when you think about it, because there was ample warning. The federal intel and law enforcement agencies knew perfectly well there could be a massive disturbance at the Capitol. But the frontline officers on duty that day didn't know. And yet the people who kept that information from the frontline officers who were overwhelmed by thousands of people milling around the Capitol building, the people who fell down on the job, who didn't do their job, they were not punished. They were rewarded. And you have to ask yourself, why is that? Here we go. Many in federal law enforcement knew perfectly well there was going to be a huge demonstration in Washington on the afternoon of January 6, 2021, and that it could become potentially violent. There is no debate about that fact. The FBI knew. But it's also clear that many on the U.S. Capitol Police Force, the frontline officers who protect the Congress, did not know.
First of all, it doesn't say the Don't Unfriend Me show has anything to do with you. It means don't unfriend me because of my political opinion. Second, we're not friends. See, there's a difference between this show and others. You think you can say whatever you want without consequence. Your freedom of speech is it's not mine to enforce. I have a right to kick you off my show if you are interrupting people from experiencing the show the way it's intended, which is not to be insulted, not for people to troll, not for people to make gotcha statements. In no way, shape, or form did I censor your speech. The moment you lied on me, one of my moderators banned you. You don't get to lie in here. I've never censored your speech. I brought you on my show. I've shown you the utmost respect, and you're being a dick. So I really don't care if your feelings are hurt. And if you want that account banned, keep it up. But you're done distracting the show. You know damn well that I engage with my viewers. And if somebody says something that is obviously counterproductive to what I'm trying to achieve, I'm going to say something about it. That's what this show does. You got plenty of attention last night. You obviously need it again. Go buy a fucking puppy. This has nothing to do with freedom of speech. It has to do that other people, when your rights encroach upon others to enjoy something or participate in something, and you're the one that's causing that issue, you're gone. It says don't unfriend me. It says nothing about you.
They were completely unprepared for what happened that day. That is a very strange
Then shut
failure
up.
of communication, and it has never been
Stop
explained.
talking. Just watch.
To understand more about
You'll
the
get
response
you'll get plenty of time to
January
talk
6th
later.
inside the Capitol, we sat down with a man called Tarek Johnson. Johnson served as a Capitol Hill police officer for 22 years. On the day of the protests, he says he was responsible for securing the certification of the presidential election. If there is anyone at the very heart of the January 6th story, it's former Capitol Police Lieutenant Tarek Johnson. And yet, for some reason, the January 6th committee never called him to testify.
My voice was one of the first ones you hear on the audio transmission, so I did expect to get an interview at some time, but no, it didn't happen. I guess the focus was on Donald Trump.
According to Johnson, no one answered his numerous pleas for help over Capitol Police radio frequencies. Johnson says he, quote, didn't hear anything on the radio. According to Johnson, Yogananda Pittman kept vital information about the protests from frontline officers like him. Pittman was the assistant chief of the department in charge of intelligence operations.
We should have been better prepared that day, and we could have been better prepared that day if the information was disseminated like it was supposed to be.
Once protesters moved inside the building, Johnson's first concern was the safety of senators. His job was to protect them. In rising panic, he called over the radio for direction and assistance. Even now, 2 years later, he is baffled by the response he got.
I was requesting permission to evacuate the Senate side, the Senate chambers, because I had a clear line of sight to get them out the Senate door. and I didn't get permission. The dispatcher called a couple times to see if I can get permission. No response.
With Yogananda Pittman and his other supervisors unresponsive, Johnson says he decided to begin the evacuation of senators himself.
The person that I thought was going to authorize the evacuation didn't do it. I wanted to get those members of Congress out as quickly as I could. That's why I initiated those evacuations. Me being disciplined, it wasn't as important as not getting the members of Congress and their staff to safety.
Footage we reviewed seems to bolster Johnson's account. The video shows Johnson conducting the evacuation of senators from the chamber. Yet Tarek Johnson was not rewarded for what he did. He was punished. A photo emerged of Johnson wearing a MAGA hat outside the Capitol. That picture cost him his career.
Sometimes I look at it and like, thank you, God, for blessing me with this hat. And sometimes I'm like, wow, I wish this hat never came in my life.
A Biden voter, Johnson says he donned the hat in an effort to rescue fellow officers he believed were trapped in the building.
I figured if I had the hat on, it'd be easier for me to navigate my way through the crowd. It was basically self-preservation and de-escalation, and I needed to get up those steps. I couldn't say what would have happened walking through that crowd without it.
But for the crime of wearing a Trump hat, Johnson found himself suspended. Ultimately, he resigned from the force and lost his pension. He now works part-time as a furniture mover. Yogananda Pittman, meanwhile, thrived 2 days after January.
Hey, Peg, last warning. See, the thing is that you've obviously never served in the military and understand what calling a traitor truly means. You're saying because a person is exercising their First Amendment right, that they're a traitor to this country. I'm not sure that you've ever watched Sesame Street, but one of these things don't belong here, and that's fucking you. I've treated you with respect. You call Tucker a traitor again. You're now lying. Treason is a wartime punishment, number one. Number two, everything he is doing is absolutely within the Freedom of Information Act, is protected under the First Amendment, and is absolutely empowered for the media and the Fourth Estate to do exactly what they're doing. What you're trying to say, but you don't understand because you're too myopic in your thought process. You've watched too much CNN. You've watched too much anything other than actually using your brain for something other than absorbing like a sponge this bullshit. So let me educate you. You can go ahead and say it's treasonous for Tucker Carlson to show something and report on the facts, which is what he's doing. His monologue is editorialization, and that is completely different. This is factual. You're hearing from witnesses, you're hearing testimony, you're hearing not official testimony, but you're hearing people state what's going on. He is reporting what happened that day based on maybe anecdotal, but at least first-person perspective evidence. You're saying that's treasonous. That isn't what treason is. And either is MSNBC, CNN, and all the other leftist media moguls for not reporting it. That isn't treason either. However, it is dereliction of what their jobs entail. They have ignored this information. And the only reason Tucker Carlson got this information is because no other media station, CNN, MSNBC, you can go on and on and on. You can go to the Huffington Post, you can go to the New York Times, requested these videos. They didn't want these videos because their Democratic handlers told them that these videos were not necessary for the national security of the United States. However, now that we see it, it contradicts the media narrative. So none of that's treason, mind you. But if you're going to put anyone, once again, here you are, singling it out because you're politically entrenched and you only care that Orange Man's bad, and Trump derangement syndrome here, and he's not even been mentioned, and you're still blowing up and melting down like all leftists do, is that you pick and choose your outrage. I'm pissed off that this information wasn't given a long time ago. I'm pissed off that Tucker Carlson said some things last night that weren't true. Why aren't you upset? And the reason why is that you don't want to be. The only thing you care about is that Democrats and liberals look good in your eyes and Republicans look like Nazis, xenophobic, transphobic, and all the things you've been fed. But the real truth is that you can't defend any of it. You're a surface level thinker. If you're not, call right here, 804-504-1955. Come on here and tell me anything that I've said that isn't completely 100% accurate. because this is what you're demonstrating. You're an onion. You peel back the layer, there's nothing left. Everything that you've done, everything you've said since you've walked in this room are all talking points I've heard 1,000 times before. To me, to be honest, you are about as interesting as a freaking plumbing main is to a plumber or a clogged toilet. I've seen it 100,000 times on this show, and I can say that because I have millions of people who interact with this show a month. Why don't you try being original? Why don't you try going, wow, I didn't know that? Or, wow, this is something completely new, because nobody's heard this. Instead, the only thing you can do with your simple, small mind is Trump is bad. Trump's a traitor. Tucker's a traitor. Lady, you don't know what treachery is. You live in a fucking white crystal palace and on some sort of cloud or planet that isn't Earth. This isn't even close to treason.
Days after January 6th, Nancy Pelosi elevated Pittman to acting chief of the Capitol Police. Late last year, Pittman took a high-paying job as the head of security at UC Berkeley, which is right outside Pelosi's congressional.
We got a call. Caller, what's your name? And caller hung up. Maybe caller will call back.
Pittman's hiring with unqualified praise for her, quote, steadfast commitment to social justice. Pittman herself boasted about her heroic performance on January 6th. Her department, she said, quote, saved democracy.
Pamela, I would love to talk to Terrence
Williams. We reached out to Pittman for comment, but she didn't get back to us. Tark Johnson spent 22 years as a Capitol Police officer. On January 6th, he says he was in charge of securing the certification of the presidential election. So he was right in the middle of it. If anyone was, Tark Johnson was. Here's more of our sit-down interview with him. Mr. Johnson, thank you for joining us.
And thank you for having me.
So from the outside, here's how it looked. We now know that huge parts of the federal government were aware that there was going to be something big happening at the Capitol on January 6th. They knew there were going to be big demonstrations there, and they prepared for that. But the Capitol Police, on which you serve for...
Peg, if you're trying to call, please call back. Please call back. I would love to have a conversation with you. I would love for you to actually give it a chance and realize that the way I interact with the text room is much different than the way I interact with somebody who has the guts to call in. There's nothing to be afraid of. It's a conversation. I will be amicable. I'll allow you to finish as long as you go ahead and provide me the same level of respect. But what you're not going to do is come in here and call and cry treason when you have never interviewed anyone who was truly treacherous towards the United States. I have. Let's see if she's going to call. 1 second. I've got to switch the program. 1 second, please. Are you going to turn down your Facebook if you could, because we're going to get feedback. Whatever you have in the background, you're going to need to turn it down before I let you come on the show. No. Just turn it down because we're going to get feedback. There you go.
Okay.
All right. Who's on the phone?
I don't like the show being interrupted just so he can talk about the people that are calling in.
Well, I'm not a cable provider, ma'am. And I understand that's frustrating to you, but this show is a talk show, and it is, you will get to the show. I mean, we're going to do that, but there's people who have things to say, and my job is to address it because there's too many people who don't. I understand you don't agree with that. Yeah.
I can't hear the people that call in. I can't hear what they're saying.
Well, they're not calling in, ma'am. They're in chat. So if you take a look, what app are you on, first of all? Are you on Facebook?
Yes.
Okay. So here's the trick. Are you using your phone or are you using your desktop?
Right now, talking to you, I'm on my phone.
Right. But when you watch Facebook...
I have an iPad.
Perfect. So when you're on your Facebook app, if you swipe 2 times to the left, it's going to open up a bunch of comments, and you'll see some of these knuckleheads making comments. That's who we're talking to right now. So okay. I respect you very much that you want to watch Tucker. I want to watch Tucker, but I also want to go ahead and I want to eat some trolls because that's what I do for a living.
Okay. Awesome.
All right. What was your name?
Thanks. Sue.
Sue, Wonderful to talk to you. Thank you so much for calling, ma'am.
Thank you.
Alrighty, bye-bye. I'll try to show more Tucker. Nice lady. They usually are. Let's watch some Tucker.
22 years did not seem prepared at all. And of course, that would be the front line in preparedness. Was the Capitol Police prepared for that day?
The frontline officers and supervisors were not prepared for that at all.
When you say it all, so you had no idea it was coming?
We knew that there was going to be a demonstration that day, but we had no idea that we were going to be facing what we faced on that action.
Now, one of the things that I've spoken to 3 Capitol Police officers that day, and a MARSOC sniper that was there as well, retired, is that there was 3 initiatives that essentially were communicated during the situation, right? There were multiple situations, 57,000 some odd peaceful who just went home. There was a group of about 3,000 that went on the steps and went into the halls. And then there was a group of 75 to 100 that were there, which this is where the point of controversy is with Ashley Babbitt. Did they have cuffs? Were they going to go there? Well, of course they did. We heard them say that in the video. We heard them threaten the 3 officers at the Antwerp chamber on the blocked off area. I've played this video plenty of times. The words that they said, get out of the effing way. We're not here for you. I can't promise your safety. These are the police officers. Those people most assuredly were the ones that if anyone is going to scream foul, that's it. But the 3 directions that came out from the Capitol Police supervisors and the hierarchy, it was fairly simple. The first thing you heard was, these are Trump supporters. Do nothing. Allow them to come in. Don't freaking put up a fight. They're not going to do anything. Conservatives don't riot. That essentially was the first communication. The second communication was, stand your ground at all cost. Fight back, pepper spray. There were people with pepper ball guns up at top that did not fire immediately. Those people were engaged to resist and fight Capitol Police as hard as you can. And then the last one was absolutely no communication, ghost silence, like not knowing what to do. And Capitol Police did whatever they thought they could do or should do in that occasion and literally just fell back on training or a lack thereof. That is why you have multiple different outcomes on the response. Some people are like, well, they were letting them in. Yes, they were absolutely letting them in. They were trying to de-escalate. They were trying to create no conflict. When you have no leadership and you have no clear direction and standard operating procedure, no offense, when you have the rank and file who have to have SOP, who have to be trained in certain scenarios, otherwise they're just like you and me. They did not expect this. They did not anticipate this. And it was a quagmire from start to finish because there was a lack of leadership, period. That's what I get from 3 Capitol Police officers and 1 ex-MARSOC sniper.
On that actual day.
So things start to fall apart. People stream in the building. You call upwards in the command chain, help me. You don't get a response. What do you do next?
So around 2 o'clock.
If you want to hear what Tucker's saying, go buy cable.
A little bit after 2 o'clock. I hear a officer say that the Capitol was breached. So I ran inside of the building. I ran, to assist. I knew that that location of where that first breach occurred was near where the members of Congress would be locked in. We initiated a lockdown, so that means the chamber doors on the Senate side and the House side were locked. So that means the members of Congress would be safe inside those locked rooms.
Yes.
So I ran over to the House side first to make sure that those doors were locked. Then I ran over to the Senate side to make sure those doors were locked. So I asked over the radio, and I say something to the effect that we need direction. We have hundreds of people inside of the building. What do you want us to do? We need some direction. I heard no response. No response. So, at that particular time.
How could nobody respond?
Nobody responded.
At some point, you put on a MAGA hat.
Okay.
Yes. Now,
now this supports what I just said. Folks, a lot of people play the video. Folks, if I just stream the video, I'm going to get deplatformed. This is a copyrighted segment. I have to add content. We have to stop it every once in a while. I can't stream this. There has to be a certain level of content. And if the bots that look for this type of thing sees that I'm streaming 10 minutes with no comments or nothing else, it will get shut down. This has happened plenty of times. Assume that we've done this before, okay? Assume we know what we're doing. This may not be for you. If you expected to turn on your TV and just have this play, I'm sorry, that's not what this show is. It's not what it's designed. I'm going to give you as much information as I can based upon what I do for a living. And there are multiple things that I do for a living. I have a 9 to 5 just like everyone else. But I'm going to add as much commentary as I can that's going to help clear some things up. That's what I'm going to do. If that bothers you, you need to turn it off and go turn on cable. If you don't have cable, you got to suck it up. All right, since I paused, I'll get a caller on. Caller, go ahead. I'm good. 1 second. Let me get your audio up there. What's your name? Chris, wonderful to meet you. Chris, what did you want to talk about tonight? You're on live.
Yes, sir. No, I was watching your live video feed for the past couple days, and wanted to talk about the Tucker videos.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I'm curious because all of this new release footage that has come out doesn't seem to have time and date stamps on it. So, and I know about video editing and altering, etc. So I'm curious about the validity of what's being presented.
So, okay, well, let's dive into the question, right? Because I've heard this before. A lot of video that isn't security footage isn't going to have time, date, and stamp, especially we're not using VHS recorders anymore. So a lot of this is digitally stamped from the rendered file. So seeing a timestamp on the lower left or right-hand corner of most security footage is kind of a thing of the past. You can have that obviously pull up, and you can add that in most digital recorders. Now, the source file will have all that information in it. It'll have times, it'll have dates, it'll have location, it'll have what type of lens is being used, what type of software is being used, all those type of things. We have to assume that it's original footage at this point. Do I question that? No, I don't. And because here's the thing, and maybe you can tell me why you do, is there's nothing in this video that helps the Democrats' story. There's nothing that he's showing that makes it more convincing than the footage that was already released and damning of that day that helps the Democrats. All of this hurts them. So the question is why would we question the validity of it? And why would they release something like this that doesn't necessarily support their cause? What are your thoughts, and why do you think it possibly could be fraudulent?
Well, I'm just actually, I believe the footage presented hurts their campaign from the footage that I saw, and well, yeah, the footage that I saw hurt their case.
I agree. So what's the question with the timestamp? I'm trying to understand.
Well, because I know about video editing and so on and so forth, I'm not sure these sequences of videos are being presented in the right order. From what you shown yesterday,
right? I agree with that.
To today, security guards or police officers escorting people back and forth to them doing what they did. It kind of doesn't add up.
I'm not sure what doesn't add up, though. That's my problem. And when you have 44,000 hours of video, to get a chronological consistency is difficult in less than 2 weeks, right? I don't know how to answer that question. I believe if you asked for the receipts, at some point that's going to have to happen. But I don't think anything has been shown chronologically unless it is a private journalist or a third party. They've done excellent jobs of breaking it down step by step, having maps, having graphics. That's been done very, very well. But this footage in particular, I don't think it's been out long enough and been in the ether for a third party or private journalist to actually do that effectively. And I don't know if Fox cares. I just don't know the answer to that question. But either way, man, I appreciate it. Was there anything else you wanted to chime on before we get started?
No, sir. No, sir. Thank you.
I appreciate you, man. Thanks for calling. Please call back again. Good to talk to you. Thanks.
Okay.
All righty. For the person that made the comment real quick about brainwashing, please explain to me which technique I'm using for brainwashing. Please, is it repetitive statements that I've made? Please point them out. Please tell me what water I'm carrying for the Republican National Convention. Please tell me what water I'm carrying for Fox News. This isn't brainwashing. This is conversation. See, liberals, this is your problem. You believe that any conversation that isn't spoon-fed to you and regurgitated from CNN and MSNBC, Rachel Madcow, and all the others is somehow treasonous. This is what freedom of speech looks like. This isn't brainwashing. This actually stops brainwashing. This gives information to people to go ahead and balance against other information and make an educated decision. You used to be the party that touted that you were the smartest, that you had the degrees, that you were college educated, that we were middle of the road, that we were the uneducated party. How do you feel now when all you want to do is go ahead and accept everything spoon-fed for you and not challenge anything? It's interesting, man. It's almost like liberals forgot who they were. Baffles me. I got to switch the audio. Hold on.
We have it. I think we have the actual MAGA.
Yes, we actually do have the mega hag. I have it here in plastic, so here it is. You want to take it? Yeah.
J6, it says.
Yeah, I labeled it J6.
So tell us why you put the hat on and how that was related to your suspension.
That's what got me national attention, was the wearing of the MAGA hat. They were officers that we had a distress call that they were approximately 10 or 11 officers, I can't remember the exact number, were trapped at the top of the rotunda steps. So I enlisted the help of some CDU officers to help me go up the steps. And I kept yelling that all the way up the steps, giving people high fives, trying to make it up the steps to get to.
Scott says, it's funny, I've got two Scotts. Scott Drake says, you're a rude ass. You're a pumpkin butt. What the fuck? I'm a rude ass? Yeah, dude, you haven't even seen Rude. Just wait till I get started. And maybe a little lack of civility is what we need in this country for people like you who refuse to engage in the conversation but just drive by with snipes. Then we have another Scott that says, me too, this guy's awesome. So I'm not going to hold it against Scots.
Guys. And as I was going down, there was a demonstrator on, I believe he was on my right side of me. So he reached over. I didn't know what he was doing. I didn't know if he was going to hit me. And he put the MAGA hat on my head. So as I was still trying to walk down the steps, then he asked for the hat back. And I said, well, I would like to keep it because the hat's going to help me.
Yeah, it's your passport through the crowd.
Yeah, exactly.
So the Capitol Police is by definition nonpartisan. It serves both parties in the Congress. It protects members of both parties.
100%.
And it has to be that way. In the wake of January 6th, you saw what looked like partisanship at the Capitol Police. Did you perceive that?
I'm still shocked because as a Capitol Police officer.
Okay, Susan, you got to call in, Susan. Come on. That's rich coming from you, who has right-wing extremists. Please tell me what about my actions are extreme? I have a show. It's funded by myself. I make a moderate amount of money doing it. Write most of my own content, not paid for by any organization. I'm affiliated with no political organization whatsoever. I've challenged Donald Trump on many of his policies. I've called him out during coronavirus. I've called him out during J6 and the election. I've called out many liberals. Why am I an extremist? Because I'm using my God-given right and my natural given right for speech? So let me get this straight. Anyone who speaks out to you in any way that you disagree with is an extremist. Well, Susan, welcome to the Extremist Club. You're a left-wing extremist. Is that fair? Can I paint you with that same brush? Why do you believe that I'm an extremist simply because I'm broadcasting something from Fox News? Do you realize I broadcasted things from CNN, Joe Biden's State of the Union, HR bills that are on the floor in the Senate, votes? Does that mean I'm an extremist because I broadcast things that come from channels that you agree with? No. I think what you're trying to say is you don't like what I say, So therefore, you're going to use childish monikers to try to pigeonhole me and broad brush paint me. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. You don't have the intellectual capacity to do so. 804-504-1955. I challenge you to call in. I challenge you to call in. I'll give you 5 minutes free interrupted. You can say whatever you want. And I want you to prove to me with examples, and bring your receipts, please. You're going to need them, of how I am an extremist, a right-wing extremist nonetheless.
We had our chief of police at the time. His name was Stephen's son, and he called for all the officers who was at work that day. He called for everybody to come in, and we all went to Emancipation Hall in the CVC. And and this was during the Black Lives Matter demonstrations.
Yes.
And he told us that as Capitol Police officers, we need to stay neutral. We need to stay neutral, period. So we were like, okay, that's what we do. Because we protect Democrats, we protect, Republicans, we protect everybody. So we need to stay neutral. So then after January 6th, you had some police officers who wasn't neutral. It didn't seem neutral.
At all?
Yeah, and that was an issue, yes.
So, I mean, that devalues the credibility of Capitol Police, doesn't it, if they're allowed to be partisan in public?
They're supposed to be neutral, period.
Since you were there on January 6th, what did you think of the job of the January 6th committee? Do you think that they were honest in the way they approached it? Do you think they got to the truth?
I prayed almost daily that they would get to me. I was never asked to testify, and if you listen to the radio...
You were never asked by the January 6th committee?
I was never asked by anybody connected to the January 6th committee to testify.
That's crap.
I ask myself why every day. And every day I might have a different answer, but I looked at what pretty much they focused on Donald Trump and not the failures of the Capitol Police.
Why do you think they were there?
I think that some people there...
Ryan Samuels, folks, he's in the house. Ryan Samuels, if you haven't seen his show, it's one hell of a show, the Ryan Samuels Show. Go take a look at it. He's a good dude. He's a brother of mine. Appreciate him. He's a fellow right-wing extremist, xenophobic, just add phobic to any of it. He's all of that too. He also served United States Marine Corps. I served in United States Navy. We won't hold that against him. But, all us treasonous people who defended this country. Sue, you haven't called in yet. What's wrong? Can't find a phone? Can't find a phone, Sue? Do you need to borrow one from the government? Is that what you need to do? Come on, Sue, call in. I mean, you're talking to a right-wing extremist. I'm an educated hick. I eat corn every day and I spit it out with sour mash. I tell my wife twice for 2 black eyes I eat pot pie every night. This should be easy for you. Come on, Sue. Call me. I just got a couple Pabst Blue Ribbon here. I'll go ahead and eat some Bubba Gump shrimp. You should be able to take me any day of the week. I'm an uneducated Yankee. Pick up the phone, Sue. Sure, you got that liberal mouth, that Harvard mouth ready to go. Bring it on. I would love for you to try. No conviction, no passion. I guess I'd rather be a right-wing extremist than a coward. That's just me.
Capitol Police.
Why do you think they were there?
I think that some people there had planned on being violent. Some people may have turned violent after what they were going through. I think that people...
Oh, Sue answered. Sue, you don't have the stones to call. Do me a favor. Do me a favor. Go into your purse and reach in and grab your husband's spine and his balls and try to put them on. But you're a woman. You can be a man nowadays. You believe that, right? So why don't you find your inner man, which is just waiting for you to go ahead and blossom, and dial into the show and say some of these things to me via a phone call. Or we can do video if you would like and put your face up here if you're okay with that. Here, I've got your face right here. Oh, it's a kid. Oh, and you've got a COVID avatar tag. Go figure. Oh. No, not at all, because you continue to support all the lies. And by the way, I'm not a Democrat. Sure you are. Sure you are. Sure you are. Well, what are you then? Let me get that straight. You're not a Democrat. You're not a Republican. You're just a person who goes around and calling people you don't know and know nothing about simply because you've made a snap judgment on them, and you call them right-wing extremists. I've known a lot of extremists in my life. Hezbollah, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Red Brigade. I've done a lot for my country. to ensure that those people, the real extremists, the people who are inherently evil and want to see all of us burn, don't come onto this soil or don't attack Americans abroad. That's what extremism is. If you believe that the 71 some odd million people who openly support Donald Trump and the people who shadow support him are extremists, which means, and so we understand each other, the threat of violence to move political initiatives forward, then you are not only completely wrong, but fucking delusional. I will not say because Antifa, which attacked an Atlanta police training department this week, who has shown more violence towards the United States than any Trump supporters have. But you can go ahead and say that BLM, 184 riots, $2.5 billion in insured and uninsured damage. You don't give a shit about that. Do you call those people out? I mean, since you're making assumptions about me, can I go ahead and assume that you've never called those people out? Because I've called out Antifa, I've called out BLM, I've called out Proud Boys, I've called out the neo-Nazis. I even went up against who I won't even say their name because I don't want to give them any credence, a very popular conservative, supposedly conservative, who's a fucking neo-Nazi. And I had them trolling my page for over a month and a half. I had death threats against my family. I had to have the sheriff's department drive by my house even more because they threatened to rape and kill my daughter and my wife. So I don't know what type of extremist you think I am, lady, but most extremists come after me. Or at least try. We got another call. Caller, where are you from? Larry from Georgia. Larry, man, hold on. Let me get you on here. Let me get your audio on. Loving that we're having so many calls. Larry, what do you want to talk about, my friend?
What's up, man? Like you said, you keep interrupting the show, Matt. I'm just messing.
That's what we're doing, Bubba. That's what we're doing. We're trying to keep it real, Larry.
I know, man. I've been watching some of these people in there, and I'm like, my God. Oh, I believe it was a total setup. I mean,
I know
I don't
you
care
do.
what nobody else thinks, but that's just the way it is. I mean, like I said, heard too many Capitol Police talk about, there was, they asked for backup, they asked for this, nothing was given. And, you just let them in the building and walk them around. I mean, it wasn't, and if you saw the video, they're not in there destroying it. They're not in there, just tearing it up.
Come on, Larry. You've seen the video where they're doing the shit that they shouldn't. You've watched this show long enough. Come on.
Well, yeah, I mean, they've done a little, but I
little.
I saw a lot more during that summer.
All right, let me ask you a question. Can we play what ifs? Because we're going to do that anyway. So we're doing that anyway. We're doing hypotheticals. Like, I think it was set up, but we don't know that. I mean, listen, there's a lot of things that are on there. We don't have. There's so much noise and fog around this thing, but let's just go ahead and assume.
There's a lot of fog.
Yeah, there is, and it's intentional. It's intentional. Let me ask you a question. With the 100 and some odd that were on the stairs and that were pushing through the building, what if they would have gotten in that anteroom chamber? What do you think they were going to do?
Depends on who got into it.
Come on, man. Knock it off. What would they do?
I believe some people aren't as violent as others. And hopefully some of them would have had restraint.
Hopefully. Hope isn't a strategy. You're military. You know better than that.
I know that.
No, it's not. It's not nothing, because what they said, you don't bring zip ties for nothing. You don't have box cutters for nothing. You don't threaten Capitol Police and say, get out of the way. I can't stop them. We're not here for you. We're here for them. Those comments should strike fear in people. I'm not talking about the overall day. I am talking specifically about the laws that were broken that day and who's responsible for them and who has broken them since, perpetuating this story, which is absolutely ridiculous. This story is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Anyone who thinks, what was going to happen? They were going to go on the Senate floor and sit down and do a powwow and do a sit-in, and all of a sudden the U.S. government was going to be like, "Fuck, here's the nuke codes. Merry Christmas, ladies and gentlemen. We have a new form of government. It's the shamans." All right.
But one of my questions is, if it's against the law for us to lie to Congress, why can congressmen lie to Congress?
Wait, say it again.
I mean, if it's against the law for us to lie to Congress,
yeah,
why can congressmen lie to Congress? Well, we had this thing, and this is what was said here, and this is what we're telling the rest of the Congress. Put your line out your fucking ass.
You're preaching to the choir. Dude, there are so many transgressions that can be lauded on both sides of the party. But right now, what we're trying to figure out really truly is, was this whole thing a fabrication? And if it's a fabrication and he has proof of that, that's all I want to know. Now, do I believe that he has taken all doubt on my mind that there was violence that day? Anyone who says that there wasn't is just lying to themselves, because there was.
Oh, no, I don't believe it was completely peaceful.
Okay.
No, I'm not going to tell you it was out there picking roses and singing songs. You know what I mean? It could have been a lot more violent. Yeah. I mean,
Sure.
compared on
Sure,
the
it
violent
could've.
scale, I believe it was very low.
It could have been a BLM riot.
Oh, yeah, it could have been terrible.
It could have been what they did to that Atlanta training facility, throwing fireworks, setting things on fire. I mean, and in my eyes, you're right. Okay, but Larry, listen, you know I love you. I got to play this. I don't want to lose people. They want to watch this. You can watch it with me. How about that? No, you can't, because I've got you on phone.
Well, I'm gonna get back. I'm gonna get back on watching. I'll call you back
I love
later.
you, buddy. You know that. I love you. How's Georgia doing?
Oh man, Georgia's doing all right, man.
All right.
Finally coming back in some heat.
Still Point's playing next month. You got to go see him. I'll give you the address. All right.
Got you, man.
Thank you, brother, man. Later. It's Larry, folks. Good dude. Good dude. All right, here we go.
To support their president. Some of those people wanted just to support him, and some of those people didn't commit violence, and some of those people didn't plan on it.
We haven't answered every question about what actually happened.
Peg, I noticed how you won't call in either. Gosh, you guys are just a bunch of warriors. You said video was altered. There's no proof that Fox News altered any of this video. In fact, there is specific proof that Democrats and the Oversight Committee have altered video. He showed that last night. If you would open up your eyes and your mind for just modicum percent, you might realize that. But see, that's the thing most liberals do, is they project what they do onto others, like slavery, the KKK, Jim Crow laws, Japanese internment camps, civil rights, modern day slave plantations. Yeah, that's what you guys do. But you keep going, sister. You sound like you're on a roll.
Is that the story they told you about it, a pat tale of good versus evil, an insurrection with no guns that took place at the U.S. Capitol? Those were lies, and they were lies told for a very specific purpose. Of course, the people in power wanted more power, and they got it.
Brenda, why are you confused when it's been absolutely...
But in the process,
I'm not going to do it. Whatever.
Destroyed.
You're right. They planted everything. Everything was fake.
In jail tonight,
Come on,
not having had their constitutionally guaranteed moment in front of a jury of their peers. They haven't even put on trial yet, and they're still rotting. Julie Kelly is the one journalist in this country who's been following this very closely. She wrote a book on it, January 6th, How Democrats Used the Capitol Protest to Launch a War on Terror Against the Political Right, which is a perfect
That's a
summation
long
of what
title.
actually happened.
Oh, gosh.
Julie Kelly.
Someone needs a
joins
graphic
us
designer.
now.
I'll help.
Julie, thanks so much for coming on.
Ryan Samuels
so
is trolling her.
as these tapes made very clear that the story we've been presented is an absolute fabrication. It's a lie. It's a fraud. That people may still be in jail on the basis of these lies, and so we wanted to talk to you for an update on where those cases are tonight.
So yes, there are, at least 100 men have been held under pretrial detention orders over the past 2 years. That means that a judge has denied them bail because the government, DOJ, successfully argued that that individual was a threat to the community. This includes, Tucker, people charged with nonviolent offenses like obstruction and conspiracy. So, of course, they don't have access to what could very easily be.
Brenda, don't get upset when I repeat what you say. I'm not picking on you. There is no denying that people who were at the protest brought in zip ties, okay? You literally saw them running into the second level, scouring for representatives with zip ties in their hands. And the photos aren't doctored, okay? It's not always a conspiracy theory, folks. It's not always that you give the government too much credit. For anyone to sit here and say that they're going to defend J6 and you're a Republican, you're wrong, and you have a problem. If you're going to sit here and say that it was all peaceful, then I have some video to show you. I showed it to some of my viewers, and I would say half of them were like, holy God, I've never seen any of this. I haven't seen these things. I haven't seen the full Ashley Babbitt videos. I've only shown the segments of where she was shot. Nobody showed the whole thing. there was bad shit that happened that day. There's no doubt about it. And if you don't know that, you need to go find it. And if you don't know how to find it, come to me and I'll show you. But 57,000 some odd people there were there and left. 3,000 of the people climbed walls, climbed the stairs, broke shit, fire extinguishers, painting. Some just walked through. Those people are misdemeanors or worse. And then there was about 75 to 100 that were there to do harm. And you know they're there to do harm because they're pleading guilty. And the ones that aren't, they are holding indefinitely under bullshit domestic terrorist charges, okay? I don't agree with that. I don't think you should suspend habeas corpus. I don't agree when Abraham Lincoln did it. I don't agree now. They should see a trial. They should have a jury of their peers judge them, and they should be prosecuted and sentenced or set free. But that's not what's happening. I've had wives of people who are in prison call and try to get on the show, and then they ghost and disappear. And I don't hear from them anymore. I don't know what to tell you. There's a lot about this, but it's possible, you understand, that multiple scenarios happen, that the Democrats have a little bit of it right, that Republicans have a little bit of it right, and the people who are nonpartisan and not involved in this have it right. There was a whole bunch that happened that day. And instead of people owning the things that they should own, whether it's a lack of security or the Capitol Police or Nancy Pelosi or Mitch McConnell, who are both responsible for the security there, not just the majority, but the minority leader, that the news stations and the Democrat side need to understand that they have perpetuated this completely past its confines, that the oversight that was done on this in the investigatory body was a complete sham and a shill, simply not to find the truth on January 6th, but to pin it all on Donald Trump. And we all know that's what happened. And they've been trying to do that with their impeachments and everything else, and P-tapes and FISA warrants and everything else since he's came down from the golden escalator. But it is possible that there are multiple true situations when it comes to January 6th. The one unequivocal fact is that every single American should denounce this and say that it should never happen again. Because if you protested and hated and got upset over BLM, then I don't care that there were no Molotovs thrown. This is still what is considered to be a riot. This isn't a protest. And you can agree or not. It doesn't matter to me. I am a law-abiding citizen, and I believe in the Constitution of these United States and the Constitution of my state that I live in, and I follow the law to the nth degree. And we are supposed to as well. Remember, we're supposed to be the thin blue line supporters. Law above else, constitutional republic versus a representative democracy. Remember? Stand with the thin blue line. Don't agree with the attacks that are happening with police. Well, then if you stand with the thin blue line, then you have to be upset what happened with the Capitol Police, whether they're inept or not, because you've stood by other departments who are 10 times worse than they are and went after what BLM did. I'm sorry if logic hurts. I'm sorry if it bothers you. But to sit here and say that this was benign, and also to sit here and say that this was a coup d'etat, are both mutually equally full of shit.
The evidence contained in this video. But aside from the now, I think, around 36 men who are held under pretrial detention orders, Tucker, believe it or not, there are some men.
The Constitution does not say we are supposed to take over. It's not what it says. The Constitution says we are supposed to take over if the government steps out of line. That's not what it says. There are processes in place, including a convention of states, where we have the ability to alter the Constitution and what it says with a 3/4 majority based upon the states to change an amendment and 2/3 majority to propose an amendment. The right to bear arms was to protect us from tyranny of the federal government or a foreign oppressor, because we knew it wasn't going to be just England. And we knew that the tyranny could return in our own forms of government based upon the opposition and the passion between the anti-federalists and the federalists. Our founding fathers saw that much. But there is nothing that says overthrow your government and attack the government if they step out of line. That's not what it says. You need to read the Constitution, and it's an oversimplification of what you're saying. Due process and law is always the way to go before revolution. Revolution is a last result. Read the Federalist Papers, please. Expand a little bit of what you're saying before you say it. Not trying to jump down on you. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm just being honest with you. Don't misquote the Constitution. Hey, caller, who are you? Where are you from?
I'm Sharon, and I'm from Overland Park, Kansas.
Woohoo! Overland Park, Kansas. Hi, Sharon. What do you want to talk about tonight?
Well, I think the confusion, I consider myself an independent, but I lean more Republican. And I was watching live. I was using my phone, going between a lot of different live feeds of independent reporters that were on the ground that day. So I saw a lot of things. And then for a few days, there was stuff afterwards. And yes, some bad things happened, but what I'm wondering, and I think the biggest question, if we could get to the bottom of it, is the people that did the really bad things, like breaking the glass and egging people on, that had bad intentions, were they, who were those people? Because there's videos of, I know there was Antifa involved, and that John Sullivan, BLM Antifa guy that was one that filmed Ashley Babbitt getting shot. He was egging people on, if you watched his feed. And I think if we could answer that, I think that would help kind of put, we know there were feds embedded in there.
We would assume that there would be feds there, yes.
But if they were in like Ray Epps and the scaffold guy, we don't even know who that is.
No,
but
we don't.
If they were, I think basically it was a setup, and I put it more on Pelosi, because if you look at the security, they had bicycle rack things. That's not going to hold anybody back.
Yeah. It's Sharon. It was Sharon, right?
Right.
1 second, Sharon.
And,
Lawful. Hold on a second. Sharon. Hold on. Time out. I got to read something real quick. Lawful Nephilim, first time, says, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for the future security. You're absolutely right. And the way that is done is through legislation. And if legislation fails, then the ultimate result would be the only other way that we would know how. But what you're saying is you want to go ahead and go past go, collect $200 and overthrow the government. I'm sorry. We are not there in any way, shape, or form. And to say we are is ridiculous. Sharon, I'm sorry I had to answer because it was a really good post.
I agree with what you just said. We're getting there, but we're not there.
Correct.
But what happened, I was watching, I had my phone on with CBS, which I will never watch again in my life. I about broke my TV. People were there to support the people that were disputing the certain states, because we wanted information to come out that was not getting out. And that was, we felt like that's the only way it's going to get out. By what happened, that ended that. When they came back in, you notice they didn't go back to that. So who benefited? It wasn't the Republicans. It wasn't the Trump supporters. Okay.
Well, okay. So let's hold on. There's a whole bunch here that I love. I love your comments. First of all, Carrie says, I didn't say go take over with guns drawn. Carrie. Yeah, you kind of did. I'm sorry, but there is a long process involved, and the founding fathers made it that way. That's why we are a republic. The process is supposed to be arduous. Change takes forever. That's why amendments are so difficult to overturn. It takes a 75% majority of the states to do so, but only a 66% of majority to go ahead and implement one. They wanted change to be hard. And unfortunately, there are pain points, and it usually is on the backs of private citizens that this happens. So I'm not against you. I understand what you're saying. And trust me, if it comes to that, I'll be the first one shoulder to shoulder with you. Until then, let's try the legislative process. Let's try to do our local, state, municipalities, and townships. Let's run for these school boards. Let's get involved in city council, county clerk, and start using people like you who are so intelligent. This is what I'm doing. I'm doing a show. You get out there and do what you need to do to educate and make people care about our country again, not care about their individual stasis that equals the collective, but actually their individual rights that ultimately ensures that freedom and this republic continue to thrive, because this whole collectivism and that the majority rules is a democracy. And that's not what we are. We are a representative democracy from an electoral standpoint, but when it comes to the way we govern, it is a constitutional republic, or at least it should be. And it's not. Sharon, here's something that I want to talk to you about real quick, is that you mentioned Ray Epps. I believe that Ray Epps, listen, there's a reason why the inner workings of the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys saw a lot of people fall. I believe Ray Epps traded and became a confidential informant for the FBI. Was he that night? I don't know. I did a show on him. I broke it down before anyone really even knew who he was. I had called it out. I had seen the video. I did a search for him. I reached out to a few friends of mine who I worked with in intelligence, and it took me about 3 minutes to find out who he was, what his address was, what town he was in, and call a couple friends in Arizona to confirm that he owned a business there. But this guy probably rolled over on other people, and he got immunity, qualified immunity. That's number one. Number two, what were the people there and what were they doing? Here's my argument. People find it absolutely impossible that there were Trump supporters there to do harm that day. I will tell you this. Ashley Babbitt was a Trump supporter. Hands down, 100%. I have heard all of the trope. I have heard that she was there running operational security. She was trying to get in through the door so she could stop others from getting in. I have shown video with full angles, 3 different angles, hearing what was being said, watching the glass being smashed, the officers' lives being threatened, them surrendering their post, the way she went in, how she went in, that the person who did the shooting was there 12 seconds with a bead on her, and his orders were to ensure that nobody encroached upon that door. Now, Ashley Babbitt in no way, shape, or form more than likely would have been a threat to a man with a gun. There's no doubt about it. But if you've run operational security, I'm not worried about Ashley Babbitt. I'm not worried. She's not the threat. It's the 100 people behind her that are. And when one of them can come in and grab my sidearm to allow 10 more to come in and beat me to a pulp, I'm not going to allow that to happen when my job is not to protect and to serve.
Okay, question. And this is what has really bothered me about it, with her.
Sure.
There's a guy he's dressed in a suit. So I'm going to assume he's standing right behind her. If you're looking at her back,
yep,
as she's getting ready to go through the window, he's over to her right.
Yep.
She's a tiny thing. He could have grabbed her. Okay. And he didn't. He just stood there.
That's because those 3 officers' lives, those 3 officers' lives were threatened seconds before, and that is on tape. And they were told to follow.
I'm not talking about the uniformed guy. I'm talking about the guy that's in a suit. So I'm assuming he's Capitol Police. Like
that
the
was
guy
the supervisor. Okay, I can tell you who that is. That was the supervisor who called off those 3 guards and told them to surrender their post because SWAT was literally moving up the stairs. And they were then going to engage the crowd.
He could have grabbed her. She was
And then what happens to behind him? Then what do the people behind him do?
His back was against the wall.
Ma'am, have you ever been in a high threat situation? Susan, have you been in a high threat situation? Or Sharon, have you been in a high threat situation where your life's in danger?
One time.
Okay. And when were you armed?
No.
Okay.
But I'm assuming he was.
That's an assumption. We don't know because a
That
weapon
is
was
an
never
assumption, but I'm
was never
just,
brandished.
you know, the guy
Listen,
that shot her was in a suit. He was armed, so I'm assuming.
and his
yes.
job was to protect that hallway at all costs. Did you recognize that there were chairs and tables stacked up against those doors?
No, I did not.
There were. And it's in the video. It was barricaded. Did you realize that they smashed it several times with a motorcycle helmet and tried to break in and were told repeatedly to stop? They threatened the 3 guards. Listen, I've had this.
Yeah,
it's not your fault.
I'm aware of that. But see, this is the thing. All of this stuff, like, needs to come out. And
I've already done it. I have. I have.
I know, but you're not a mainstream, you know, a big. I mean,
then that's your job. Then that's your job, Sharon, to help me get there so I can continue to tell the truth.
But that's, you know, you get pieces here, you get pieces there, and that people are confused. We want to know the truth.
I know we are. Listen, it comes down to this. You're never going to know the full truth. You're only going to know what's portrayed. And that's the way this works. What we have to do is continue to use the tools that we have, the Freedom of Information Act, to subpoena records, to interview and talk and collect evidence that's factual, not supposition. The one thing I hate about J6 more than anything else is all of the guesswork and all of the conjecture that people have created that is not true. The Democrats do that as well. We shouldn't be defending this. We can condemn it and also find out the truth at the same time. I think that's fair.
I think that's fair, but the reason the suppositions happen is because of videos that have come out that have not been acknowledged, have not been put out there, you know, and
yeah, that's what we're trying to watch tonight.
I went through I'm old enough. I went through the civil rights, the women's rights, the Vietnam protests. I'm old enough for that.
Yes,
and this, I have never in my entire life. It makes me cry to see where this country is headed.
Sharon, you and I both. To be called a traitor by someone on the internet, to be called a Nazi when my great-great-grandmother fled Nazi Germany. Grandma Schwartz.
My dad and my aunts and uncles, because of my great-grandfather, would have been put in concentration camps. So, yeah.
Well, listen, Sharon, I want to say thank you for calling in. You are more than welcome to call in anytime you want. Thanks for proving your points and having an amicable conversation and listening to mine. And I would love to talk to you again anytime. Give me a call. We're going to listen to some more Tucker. I'll wait a few seconds before I start it again so you can watch it too. Okay.
So I can get back on. Okay. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am. God bless.
You
too. What a nice lady. Yes, ma'am. All right. We're going to wait a few seconds. All right, folks, we're going to get watching on this. Jimmy says, Ashley Babbitt was murdered. You've never been in a situation where lethal forces need to be used, and you've never done a situation where operational security was your standing order. I'm sorry. It's a simplistic viewpoint. It's not murder. If you believe that a police officer or a person who is in a protect to serve role can use lethal force to defend themselves, then you should have no issue when a person is designed to defend a place where people are not supposed to be. I've stood guard duty. My standing order was to shoot, kill, in any way, shape, or form, anyone who encroached upon that area. That was my standing order. I executed my role, and I never had to. Ryan Samuels is in here. Larry's in here. There are plenty of guys in here who are ex-military who are telling you that you're wrong. Did Ashley Babbitt pose a threat at the time? We found out posthumously the answer was no, but we don't know, and we couldn't have possibly known at the time, and neither could that officer. I don't care that he left his firearm in the bathroom. I am concealed carry. I've been concealed carrying for 20 some odd years. I've left my firearm in the shitter and then wash my hands and go, oh crap, I forgot my gun. It happens. It happens. And I understand all the things that he said under testimony. I get everything you're saying. I love you. Good night, sweetheart. Get some sleep, baby. I love you. But the whole point about this is you're saying it's murder. And what you're then saying is that anybody whose life is in danger and decides to use lethal force and has the right to do so, that there's no such thing as self-defense, that there's no such thing as lethal force. that's justified. And I don't believe you believe that. I don't believe you believe that. Is it an absolute travesty that she is dead? Yes. Is it a travesty that this took place? Yes. Is it anyone's fault but hers and the people who perpetuated this? No. That's called accountability. And in our country, you are responsible for your actions. Nobody, and the one thing I was going to say to Sharon, and then we'll play the rest of the video, is that nobody can make you do anything. I don't care how convincing Ray Epps is. If I was there and he's like, we're going in, I'm like, fuck you. I'm leaving. I'm going home and I'm going to bed. If you were convinced to go in and break the law, then you are culpable for your actions. Period. Full stop. You don't have to agree. Call me a dumbass. I don't care. It means you're lawless. And you're not a Republican. You're not a conservative. You don't believe in the law. You're a fucking shill. You don't believe in the law. It's funny. You defend cops when a black guy's killed. It's interesting. It's interesting. But when it comes to something that you disagree with, and it happens to be a person who happens to be a Trump supporter and a veteran, which is horrendous, nobody put Ashley Babbitt in that doorway but Ashley Babbitt, period. She broke the law. She went to a place that was secured, and the intent was nobody's getting past here. Those guards issued that order several times. They were told to surrender and move aside. And he said, I cannot do that. And then when they were finally relieved by a supervisor and SWAT was coming up the stairs, they exfilled to the left. And that's when they said, let's go, let's go, let's go. And they called the sound of charge and started going through the door. You haven't watched the video. Your ignorance is showing. Hey, caller, where are you from? What's your name? Hey, Chris, hold on a second. Hold on, man. Hold on. I gotta switch the audio. All right, Chris, go ahead.
You were just talking about the Ashley Babbitt shooting and so on and so forth. There was no mention of the 18-year-old kid that got killed for being a Trump supporter.
That's whataboutism. I don't do whataboutism on this show. People are saying BLM supporters should have been shot too. I'm not. Listen to me and listen carefully. Yes, I don't do whataboutism on this show. There are plenty of BLM protesters who cops are deaf, blind, lost fingers because of fireworks. Their officer suicides are up. Every one of those fuckers should be held accountable. Every fucking one of them. And if those people, Antifa inside Georgia and Atlanta, throwing fireworks, if I was on duty, I would consider that I had the right to use lethal force against them. They were trying to cause harm. They are throwing explosives and Molotov cocktails. At that point, I have a right to defend my life and to protect that property.
Oh, absolutely. I've done security for over, used to be over 10 years of my life. I'm completely aware of the situations that can happen. And that's not what I was referring to.
I don't want to talk about this, Chris. I've done this. Do you know how many times I've talked about this? No one is going to agree. No one's going to disagree. You either understand and believe in the law or you don't. Circumstantial bullshit has nothing to do with the law. You break into a secure government building, you're going to die. End of fucking story.
Absolutely.
End of story. There is no conversation. Go break into Rocky Mountain Flats in Colorado, the nuclear facility. You're going to die. Go break into a secure government agency like CIA, ONI, NSA, where I have worked or been into those buildings many times. You're going to die. Go try to drive a vehicle into the Pentagon or towards the White House across the barricades and the bollards. You're going to die. Why is this so complex for people to understand? It is black and it is white. There is law and then there is lawlessness. Period. You are not allowed in that area. It is a secure area. It's a government facility. I understand it's the people's house in name only. But if they say you don't come in here, you don't go in there. That's the law. You don't get to walk into bank vaults. You don't get to go into behind an Apple store. You don't get to go ahead and go into Club 33 in Disney. There are rules. These people with rules have guns, and they are very serious about their job. And you fucked around and found out. That's it. I don't know what else to say. That's my position. I'm not mad at you. There's 100,000 comments and people are dropping like flies because they don't want to hear this shit. They want to watch the Tucker video. And I want to show it to them. All right, brother?
All right, man.
All right, man. Thanks for calling. All right. Tucker video on the way. Sorry, folks. Law and order. I believe in it. You should too. Here we go.
Tucker, believe it or not, there are some men going on 24, 25, 26 months, denied bail, languishing in jail, including the D.C. gulag, as the government continues to delay their trials. This all has the imprimatur, by the way, of every judge on the D.C. District Court. I want to emphasize the real villains here are the federal judges
Tanera,
in Washington,
good
D.C.,
point.
who have allowed the government to play every single game to keep this evidence out of the hands of defendants, violate.
No, Butch, whataboutism is actually not a liberal point of view. It's actually the same thing as logical fallacies. It's the same thing as red herrings and straw man arguments. A whataboutism is deflecting to a point and saying, well, because Ashley Babbitt died, every person who ever protested against a federal building should die too. The situations were completely different. I'm not here to talk about every single situation, and I don't believe because one thing happened, it should happen to someone else. That's what tyrannical governments do. That's what socialists do. That's what communist countries do. One law for all. I disagree with you. If you want to talk about the merits of George Floyd and what a bunch of bullshit that was, I'm happy to do that. If you want to talk about BLM and the $2.5 billion in damages and the 184 non-peaceful protests, I can talk about that with you. And if you want to talk about as many officers as I've known who have committed suicide or veterans who've committed suicide based upon the actions of people who are just fucking stupid, we can talk about that too. But what you're not going to do is call me a liberal because I use a term that is often used in debate. That's not my fault that you believe anyone who says, we're not talking about that, we're talking about this, is a liberal. How myopic.
Oath of office to protect the rights of defendants and their due process rights. So I really want to emphasize that. But look, Tucker, there's 1,000 criminal defendants right now, half of them.
It is not the people's house to roam freely wherever they want. There are security parameters. There are people there who deserve to be protected because there's fucking nutsos out there who try to kill them. I'm sorry that you don't understand this. This is a government building. It's hard for me to understand why you don't understand this unless you have never worked in a secure building and stood guard over something and tried to protect it. He had an order. She encroached upon that order, and her life was taken because of it. It is a tragedy. It is a shame. And I shed tears the night it happened, and I came and reported on it live. And then I showed video 2 days later of what truly happened, and it's opened a lot of people's eyes. I suggest you watch it. Or if you have seen it, you're simply ignoring it. You've got enough of my time. There's the phone number. If you want to talk to me, call.
Pleaded guilty or been convicted at trial. So, and the government just announced 2 months ago in January that they were still uploading global, they call it discovery, which means material related to the entire investigation. What they did was arrest people first, find the evidence later, and cover up what could potentially.
It is our house, the people's house, and they work for us most assuredly. And there was a time that you could walk into and go and see the Resolute desk and walk into the Oval Office. Most assuredly you could. And then some things happened. They started taking off and shooting at presidents. They started shooting people who they disagreed with. And you had zealots that went ahead and ruined it for all of us. We live in the real world. And yes, it is the people's house. And if you want to visit it, you make an appointment and you go on a fucking tour. If you want to go into secure locations where you're not permitted or authorized to be, then you're an idiot. I'm sorry, it's incapable. I don't know how to answer this question anymore. I don't know how to answer it anymore for you. I don't know how to spell it out. Either you believe in the law or you don't. You decide.
If this were happening in any other country, the U.S. State Department would immediately acknowledge that these were violations of the most basic human rights. These are political prisoners, and the U.S. government would condemn it. But it's happening here, and it's ignored, except by you. And I so appreciate your tireless reporting on this. Julie Kelly, thank you.
Thank you, Tucker.
So as far as we know, for more than 2 years, no one in our vast and well-funded media landscape demanded to see the footage that we have been showing you. Footage that was shot with your money on cameras that you paid for on public property that technically you own. So we did, and we got it, and we're proud of that, I guess. It's kind of a basic function of journalism. But now that we have done that, well, of course, we've committed some crime, say the media.
Carlson attempting to downplay the violence by showing video of people calmly walking around the Capitol. And Tucker was trying to persuade his viewers that while there were some bad apples, most of those there were peaceful.
Butch, I'm running a show that's going to see probably, last night we did almost 20,000 comments. I don't have time to properly have a conversation with you unless you call in. So I'm sorry you feel slighted. That's why we don't do this. That's why we watch the show and you call in and we have a conversation. The number's right there, 804-504-1955. You've heard other people call in. Okay, and at this point, I'm frustrated because people are doing what they always do. I'm not your fucking enemy. I'm not the one you have to convince that our government needs some serious fucking change. I worked for them. I know. I'm not the guy you have to convince that a lot of the bullshit that we're hearing about J6 is overblown bullshit. I'm not the one you have to convince that the constitutionality of our election is in question. I'm not the one you have to convince about COVID and China and balloons and the jab. I'm not the guy. Why are you fighting me? Because we disagree. Pick up the phone and call and tell me why I'm wrong. Don't tell me why you're morally indignant to my comment. Tell me what I have said that isn't true. Do you believe that there are certain areas that should be secure without equivocation, including your own home? Do you believe that the government has the right to set certain parts and areas of government buildings with absolutely no access to anyone other than people who are cleared? I'm assuming you do. Because if you work there, I'm assuming that you would appreciate that blanket of security. Then if you do, then we have nothing to argue about. Otherwise, what you're saying is you don't agree with what happened. That's fine. Your emotions are allowed to feel that. You can emotionally feel that way, but factually, you're just dead wrong. What else can I say?
Right. Showing you the video. Can you imagine?
We do have to forward through the commercials because I can't show these commercials on my show.
MSNBC has the truth on tap. More next.
For the
install to get
pressed to see the actual
fantastic product, and I don't see.
Well, as far as we know, for more than 2 years, 26 months to the day, actually, no media organization in the country pressed to see the actual tape, the January 6th surveillance footage. And there was a reason for that. So a small group of people.
Thanks, Jared. It's not the first time I've heard it.
The Democratic Party and their allies in the media.
The real thing is that I'm hung like Lynn Swan, though.
What you were allowed to know about what happened, what actually happened.
He's also a rapist,
in the Capitol
so not really
January 6th.
the best.
And they defended that monopoly with great ferocity, as monopolists tend to do. So the moment we broke that monopoly, simply by getting access to the footage, it's not hard. That's what you're supposed to do when you work in the news business. Other media outlets went crazy. They all did. And we just couldn't resist, not to be self-referential, but it's too hilarious. So we assembled a montage. Here it is.
What we saw tonight, Allison, from Tucker is nothing new. He has been trying to sanitize the very real violence that we all saw unfold at the U.S. Capitol.
41,000 hours of...
Absolutely not, Jim. Washington, D.C. is not a state. It's not owned by the people. That's where you get it completely wrong. It's a sovereign. It's a completely sovereign, and it's a municipality. It's a district. The problem is that you believe that everything that the government has is ours. And although it may be paid for us, it is not an individual's right to claim ownership on certain things that are designed for the country. You can't go and grab an F-22 and just fly it because you have taxes. You paid into the service that provides. And the government of the United States and the military and police force are designed to protect those assets from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And you are domestic. And I'm sorry you don't like that. But I've already had this conversation enough. We're going to watch the show.
Hours of footage from an attempted coup is federal evidence.
Yes, Pamela,
How
it
on
is
earth
separate.
Is Kevin McCarthy trying to
doesn't-
justify
It doesn't have electorate. It's not a state. Washington, D.C. is a district. It's a representative district. We can go into this. I've made shows about it. Go look it up. But let's listen to this. Did I serve in the military? Yes, I did.
justify the fellow members of Congress giving 41,000 hours of federal investigative evidence and material to Fox News?
This is the danger of not fairness, unfairness. You should give it to every news organization at the same time.
What's next? Or is the Speaker of the House going to turn
Nobody
over
wanted
the
it.
daily schedules of the Capitol Police? Are they going to give them the codes to the locked doors?
Nobody that believes any of that garbage Tucker was spewing, none of their kids will ever believe that garbage.
It feels like a Soviet system, or, you know, the way the Nazis would build a Potemkin village. Tucker Carlson's doing the same thing with the footage from 1/6.
Footage.
We're both Soviet and Nazi. What you're hearing, of course, is panic. It's fear. A hurt dog barks. But it's still pretty funny. Steve Krakauer covers the media for a living, really better than anyone else. He's the author
No,
of
it is not. It's autonomous from the United States, and it doesn't necessarily fall within the same parameters of states in the United States. It is a district. It does not have representation and a voice or a vote, and it was made that way because of its purpose. Folks, with all due respect, this is common knowledge, and this is really easy for you to access. Is this what we need to be talking about? Is Washington, D.C. a state or not? Let's listen to this and let's have some conversations in regards to this, and then we can get into Washington. And if Washington was a state, the Democrats would not be trying so very, very hard to make it and Puerto Rico also states with electoral representation so they can basically stack the vote. Enough said, right? Okay, great. Let's go.
Author of Uncovered. He joins us tonight. Steve, thanks so much for coming on. I think I'm getting kind of old, but I thought the whole point of the news media was to get evidence and bring it to viewers or readers and let them assess for themselves, like in a country full of adult citizens. But no?
You would think so. I'm sorry, did Don Lemon say this is the problem with fairness? I think that...
That's good.
So great. Look, this is, as you mentioned, a total panic episode that we're watching in real time, flailing by the corporate press. Because, yes, for years now, as you mentioned, over 2 years, they've crafted a narrative that really is a house of cards. No one really believes
Yes,
that
Debbie, you
what
did.
the media portrays, which is that this is just another 9/11, the worst attack since the Civil War. No one actually believes that. I mean, you look at poll after poll of the January 6th committee, which really was in partnership with the media. I mean, they actually had a former media executive, an ABC executive, craft the committee's videos that you saw. I mean, it was a total partnership.
Goose
and yet it didn't
fraba.
move the needle at all.
Goose
Nobody was
fraba.
swayed by the total sham that we saw from the January 6th committee. And so now, yes, you would think a media would be curious about.
Penny Parker says, BS, handpicking what you want isn't the truth. Fox News hasn't learned anything from putting out conspiracy theories and out lies. Penny, I agree with you. I think Fox News does dabble in some of the more extreme thought processes, and some of the hosts and the editorialization that happens there is most assuredly not accurate. I think it's a little rich for you to say that this show tonight and last night has proven that Democrats and on the investigatorial body against Trump in January 6th have fabricated evidence, cut audio and video a certain way to make people look complicit or cowardly. I'm sorry, I don't understand why you believe that video, which is straight video from this, that was held out from the general public's eye, is a threat. What are you afraid of being released? Is it because it contradicts the story of January 6th and it shows that, yes, there was violence, and there most assuredly was, and I condemn it every minute of it. But there was also 57,000 people there that did nothing but go home and sit in traffic. That there were people there for 2 hours into Donald Trump's speech while this was going on that weren't involved and weren't there. That there was 3,000 some odd people that were on the steps, that went through the halls and did things that they shouldn't have. Absolutely. And there was an edge of people who were there, in my opinion, to cause harm, bodily harm, to representatives of these United States. And all of that can simultaneously happen and be true without being a fabrication. But because your myopic level of thinking that everything has to be black and white and how short-sighted you're being is unfortunate. Because if you will never listen to anyone else, if you only believe in what you think is correct and your ideological entrenchment is satisfied, then you are forever damned never to have conceptual learning or change agility in your life, because you'll remain the same and stagnant. Does everything that Fox say, is it true? No. But for you to sit here and only single out Fox News and not also have the same disdain for CNN and MSNBC, you just saw it on the news. They have been perpetuating a story with one perspective for 2 years, and you're upset that Tucker Carlson does it for 2 days? I'm sorry that your little bubble is burst, but I don't have many sympathies for people who put themselves in a bubble anyway.
Who planted the bombs outside the DNC and the RNC, and the massive security failures, as you mentioned, which was one of the elements that the January 6th committee did look into, as we now know, but was kept out of the final report because they decided to make it all about Trump. You would think that maybe they'd be curious, or at least any rational person might be curious about Ray Epps, which, someone who was a leader of the Oath Keepers and was buddies with Stuart Rhodes, and is the only person on video on January 5th night and January 6th morning encouraging people to go into the Capitol, and he's getting glowing profiles in the New York Times. Like, someone should say, what is going on? Why is this happening exactly? And so, no, in the service of the narrative, a narrative that no one really in the country is believing, this is the panic we get.
Yeah. Everybody's on the same team. I mean, you would think, like,
Stephen, real quick, there's a smile on my face, and I'm happy to be here tonight. I love doing this. I love having conversation with people, and sometimes it can get heated. Don't give up. I believe most of this country, 90% of it, is on the right path. I do believe that. We go to work, we do our jobs, we have our barbecue, we help our neighbor, we kiss our wife goodbye every day, we kiss our husband goodbye every day, we love our children. All of these things I believe in, and I believe 10% of it is getting most of the attention. Because unfortunately, that's what our government is, and that's what our country is. The minority voice actually gets heard. There's nothing wrong with that. And unfortunately, you have to take the good with the bad. That's just the way it is. But we don't get to give up. I do this every night, and it's like beating my head against the wall. And I was a little short with Chris, who called. And it's not because I don't like Chris. It's because I am constantly having to defend a position that if you believe in the rule of law, then that is simply should be the end all be all. There are no caveats. There's no exemptions. Justice is blind. And if it's good for somebody in Chicago or Atlanta who resists a police officer or breaks into somebody's home and they have to put that person down unarmed or armed, then it has to be good for that to happen to a white Air Force veteran female who we all wish was still alive. There's no argument in it. You have to take the emotion out of the equation. And you have to watch the facts. And we can have speculation all we want. You can ask me, do I think it's right? No, it's not right. It's horrible. It's an atrocity. It sucks. But that's not what this is about. It's about facts. What happened? The who, what, when, where, and why. And all the sticky in between. And it's never pretty. And it's always ugly. But that's the way it is. But don't give up on people. Don't give up on people.
I mean, you would think, like, the conventional way to see it is left versus right, Republican versus Democrat. Well, if that's true, why is the New York Times doing like a 9-part series on how Mitch McConnell got so much money from China? But they would never do that because he's on their side. It's so great. It's all very obvious now. Steve Krakauer, great to see you tonight. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tucker.
Thanks for your help tonight, Amy.
Well, it turns out the same people, the same media outlets that lied to you for over 2 years about January 6th, it was a dangerous insurrection, have been telling you that we have to spend a lot more, billions more, on the war in Ukraine forever. And if you don't agree, well, you work for Putin. Now they're saying we need to supply F-16s to Ukraine. It's insane, of course, and it is fundamentally a core tenet of neoliberalism that controlling the internal affairs of other countries matters a lot more than improving the lives of your own citizens. What's amazing is how many Republicans in this country, as if you need more evidence, everyone's on the same side, agree. Here's Senator Dan Sullivan of Alaska.
You know, on the F-16s, I hosted several...
Is this it?
In Russia.
Perfectly groomed.
Is that
also
it?
Engaged the
Yeah, I'm not going to play Russia Tucker's show. This isn't Fox News.
When you look behind WeatherTech products.
Well, then here's my... Oh, wow, this is cool. Can I do this? Represent. Okay, sorry. Here's what it comes down to. Is January 6th was the first time in Republican and conservative history, truly, that there seemed to be a certain element of the collective, of our group, that did not care about law and order. And that's a hard thing, and that's a hard pill to swallow. And I think people want answers. And I think people, when you don't have answers, will latch onto anything they can to make it make sense. The John F. Kennedy assassination is a perfect example. I have followed that since I've been a young boy. My uncle was an avid John F. Kennedy assassination enthusiast and read hundreds of books and thousands of hours of videos and testimony and the Warren Commission through and through, backwards and forwards. And he passed that love on to me. And I had to go without an answer for most of my life. And I'm pretty confident that the answer that I came up with many moons ago is the accurate one. And I feel very validated over the 14,000 pages of documents that I have now went through every single page. And it took me almost 45, 50 days to do so, that I have the answer that I feel comfortable with. And I also know the answer that no one will ever be held accountable for it, because the people who were there, it's not that they're dead. It's that America doesn't care. America has become anesthetized. It has become numb. And it doesn't necessarily find the things of atrocities of the yesteryear to be so bad today, which is mind-boggling. Bill Clinton smashing Monica Lewinsky on the Resolute desk would probably get you elected today. Watergate would be well, who cares? Look at the debate questions that were given to Hillary Clinton. That would have been a contradiction. The Julian Assange leaks, the P-tape supposedly from Donald Trump, the FISA warrants, the spying on the campaign, Benghazi. These things would have destroyed somebody in the 70s, 60s, 80s, 90s. Now, nothing. And at some point, the American people got so used to the lies that it became almost cathartic, like a warm blanket, to not be told the truth. Because it would give us something to do. It would give us something to strive for. Give us something to focus on other than the drudgery of our everyday metal coffin existence and grinding out the dollars and pushing the weights in the workout room. And it almost became that we expected it from our government to lie to us and deceive us. And one of the biggest lines that and I'm not a scripture type person, and I don't even know if this is directly from the Bible, and it very well may be, and even though I've read the Bible several times, is that the greatest trick the devil ever pulled is to convince the world it doesn't exist. And I'm sure that it was put much more eloquently by some parishioner or pope or a disciple or somebody who is a hell of a lot closer to God than I am. But that is apropos to this conversation that the United States government has convinced the world that the truth is impossible to find. And with that gives them unfettered power and access to do whatever they want or whatever they choose to do, unbeknownst to the American people. And if that's accurate, and if that's true, and I'm right about that, and I think everyone who's watching, whether you're Republican or Democrat, agree that that's accurate, then that should be our focus. Is not how do we get to the bottom of January 6th, or how do we get to the bottom of holding people in BLM accountable, or if the spy balloon gathered information, or if Murdaugh really was guilty or not. I have, Shannon, I've seen that If I Were the Devil from Paul Harvey. It's one of my favorite. Also, look at his about the thin blue line and police officers. Paul Harvey is one of my heroes. But maybe we should look at how do we restore integrity into the United States government. And I will tell you, there is only one thing that erodes integrity faster than someone being compromised. And that's money. And it's throughout our entire government. It has become a place for people who are moderately secure to become financially independent on the backs of the citizens of this country, to profit from the devaluation of our currency, to our moral fiber, to our belief, even to our fucking civility. And those taxes are more important than any inflation or any W-2 that we see or sign at the end of the year. The taxation of the citizenry, the unfettered loyalty to each other and this country and the United States is a tariff that we can no longer burden to pay. We hate each other. We find solace in the pain of others because ours is too great to cope and bear with and muster. So we get our endorphin hits and we pick up our phones and we use the digital glow of LCD and lithium batteries to anesthetize our feelings and our emotions and our understanding of basic civility and humanity towards others. In this show alone, I've been called a traitor. I've been called a Nazi. I've been called a racist. I've been called a right-wing extremist. There was a time when if somebody said or uttered those words on the playground or in the back alley, that person would not leave from anything other than a horizontal position. And nowadays, it rolls off the tongue like there is no consequence. We despise our government. We challenge the media. We don't like the politicians. It says it in all the polls. We don't trust the president. We don't trust the media. We don't trust professors. We don't trust senators or congressmen or governors or mayors. We don't trust any of them. We loathe them. All the polls say so. The least trusted people in the United States are the people who you're emulating. You refuse to have a conversation with people. You refuse to stop and just have dialogue. And yes, it can get hot and you may unfriend or ban someone out of your life or whatever, but at least begin the conversation. At least I'm up here trying to encourage people to call in and have a dialogue. And we may not agree. And I may get frustrated. I might yell at somebody or cuss at somebody. I might even screw up and apologize. Like the gentleman, I believe his name was Chris. I feel bad because I shut him down and I was hard on him because I was sick and tired of talking about what we were talking about. And I just wanted to watch the damn show. And I wanted people to get back on topic. This playground that we're in, the political fray, it's not healthy. People ask me, why don't you run for office? This is why. Because I will have to look at somebody and say, Washington, D.C. isn't a state. And I don't want to be a teacher like that. I want to be a purveyor of truth. I want to get to the bread and butter. I want to get to the core of this Tootsie Roll Pop in the least amount of bites possible. Because I don't want to sit there licking the fucking lollipop for 4,327 licks. I want to get to the meat of this. And the only way you can get to the meat of this is have conversation. Money needs to be removed from politics, plain and simple. The budget has to be balanced. Political action committees, special interest groups, unions need to be eradicated from politics. We need to have term limits. We need to absolve Citizens United. Corporations are not people and they don't deserve First Amendment rights. Their dollar is not speech. Starbucks, Facebook should not pump millions of dollars into these elections out of state and be able to buy votes under the pretense of speech. But if you continue to focus on balloons and if you continue to focus on the ticker at the bottom of the show for whatever cause it's going to be next month, and you don't try to get down to the nitty gritty and the bread and butter of these situations, which are the things I just mentioned, we are forever going to be distracted. I'm going to give everyone one last comment for tonight, including me. You're not right. Your side is not right. Whether you're a Republican, a conservative, a moderate, a liberal, a progressive, a socialist, an egalitarian, a Buddhist, an existentialist, a pragmatist, a vegan, a gluten-free, Birkenstock wearing, tree bark eating hippie from the 1970s. I don't give a shit. Whatever. You're wrong. You're wrong about something. And if you were wrong once, you could be wrong again. Stop and ask more questions. I don't know everything. I'm the first person to admit it. I am not perfect. I am a sinner. I am a man, and I can be wrong. That is why I take it so fucking seriously. Go back and scroll my shows. Why I don't make grandiose predictions, when I only base things on fact, and I will listen to my track record and put it up in front of anybody. I've been right, and my loyal viewers who've been here since the beginning, when we were at 10 or 12 or 15 people, and tonight get to 500, and we're sitting at almost 150,000 followers, they know my record. And the only reason why I know what I'm talking about is because I listen to people like you. I would challenge you to do the same thing. And more importantly, listen to people you don't agree with, because that is the only way we're going to learn. Politicians are not to be admired. They work for us. It's time we start firing them or holding them accountable when they don't do their job. That's it. Folks, thanks so much for everything you do. I appreciate you. If anybody is Peg still going? She's like the Energizer Bunny. Where's Peg? Let's see what Peg, let's put her in the spotlight. Let's do this. Will be fun. Oh, you guys are going off on her. Here we go. She says, Robin, because he was having a pity party. Do you just copy and paste this? You already said this. And he invited them to the Capitol to be there. It's going to be wild. So, well, it is wild. So let me guess, spring break is a crime? Is that wild? What about Girls Gone Wild? Is that wild? What about Into the Wild? Are you a Jack London fan? Is that too wild for you? What about Born to Be Wild? Is that song just too much? What about wild fries at In-N-Out? Do you eat those? Just a little too wild for you? I don't know. I've had a lot of fucking wild times in my life. A lot of wild times. I didn't storm the Capitol. I think you transfix on things that justify the nuance and the entrenchment in your mind. I think you focus on things that have no merit. Yes, Trump said it's going to be wild. Do you know how many times he said that about a rally? Out of the 470 some odd effing rallies he's had, how many times? It's going to be a wild time. It's going to be a good time. To you, that means insurrection? Really? Is that what you mean? So when you use the term wild, you're going to go storm the Capitol? Is that what you're saying? I don't think that's what you're saying. Supporters to be wild, and they were. No, that's no. Your definition of the word wild is wrong. That's not Donald Trump's fault. That's your fault, because you have literally you have just stuffed a square through a round hole, and you're like, it fit. That fat. I put the thing in the hole. Yeah, and I'm making fun of you. Yeah, I'm making fun of you. At least I'm not doing the Trump thing. I'm making fun of you. I'm making fun of you because you don't make any sense. Your arguments are just invalid. It's as prosthetic as your avatar picture because you're too ashamed to put up your own image. Why is your self-confidence so low? Why do you need an avatar? Why can't you put up a real photo? You look like a nice person. Is that what you look like in your avatar? Do you have a perpetual wink going on? Are you one-eyed Willie? Show us. What do you look like? Who are you? Are you a real person or are you a bot? Are you an angry, bitter old person? I'm surprised you don't have 3 names, Peg. If Trump didn't have a temper tantrum, then his followers would not have rioted on January 6th. That is the most ridiculous thing. You're having a temper tantrum now. Are all liberals who listen to you right now, are they going to go storm the Capitol? So what you're saying is Donald Trump has special magical powers. He has the ability to program people Manchurian candidate style with the power of submission. The power of submission of the human will simply by saying something. Everyone will bend a knee to him simply if he says so. Is that what you're saying? The power of suggestiveness to have people be submissive in their free will and thought. It's almost as bad as the January 6ers saying Ray Epps caused them to go into the building. No, they did that because they wanted to break the law. They wanted to because everyone else did it. And when you get people together and you have a lack of leadership, bad things will happen. I'm going to tell you something, Peg, and maybe something you don't understand. In fact, it's not maybe, you don't. At any given time, there's about 2.7 million people in prison. 2.7 million people in prison. And those are the ones that got caught. It's estimated that over 7.5 million people on parole or former felons. And that doesn't include the people who break the law and don't get caught. You want to ask the question about lawlessness or why people aren't being held accountable. My question is why are we not completely unhinged in an anarchy anyway? The only reason why people follow the law is because other people follow the law. And when one person doesn't follow it, it is very easy to turn weak-minded or weak-willed people to also break the law. It shows that because you're looking at a whopping 13% of the U.S. population has either are in jail, out of jail, or haven't got caught for crimes. It's not that lawlessness is new. We've learned this from the Democrats. We've learned that from liberals. We've seen it for the last 10 years, the way you treat the law. And you're so surprised, and you get to sit up on this shiny hill of yours and castigate upon all people who didn't vote for the president you voted for or the person you didn't vote for and say, how dare you heathens, you criminals. How dare you follow the leader even though we've been doing it since the 1970s. Who the fuck are you to preach about the moral indignities of the Republican Party? your party has done more shit against African Americans, minorities of this country, than Republicans could ever do in 20 lifetimes. We don't throw it at you. We don't sling those arrows at you. The only time Republicans bring up the KKK and Jim Crow and Japanese internment camps and civil rights and modern day slave plantations and redlining and gerrymandering, the only time we do that is when you try to pin that shit on us. You got the wrong fucking party, sweetheart. You're reading the wrong books. Peg then comes out and says, now I saw the truth on January 6th, not edited video. That's all you saw was edited video. If you didn't see edited video, then why is there more video? Oh, God. You used to be the party of education. You used to be the party of the college graduates. Are you fucking kidding me? Fake video, spliced video. It's not fake. If you Trump had a pity party. Oh, my God. Oh, I'm much smarter than you people, but you can't call in. How did she not get banned? You people have no argument here. Just, I'm waiting. I'm waiting for you to call in, sister. You don't have the guts. This is unbelievable. Unbelievable. See, but this is the thing that we have to deal with, folks. You deal with it all the time. It doesn't matter. You could have the smoking gun. You could have audio tapes of Nancy Pelosi saying, and I don't believe this, but I fabricated the whole thing. I created it. I hired the people. I took a check from George Soros. I funded it. I paid for it. I made sure the National Guard never would be, stationed here and ready to go. I did it all. It was me. And people would be like, that's a deep fake. It's fake. It's a spliced video. Peg, I'm going to give you one more chance to call into the show because I think you're smarter than you are leading on. I think we can extract it from you. I think we can prove to everyone that you're a person that is worth having around here. I think you're angry. I think you're frustrated. I think you're taking it out on the wrong people. But damn it, I'm going to give you a chance to call in and redeem yourself. Come on, Peg. I don't bite hard. Come on, Peg. Call in. Make it happen. I'll give you 2 minutes, Peg. Lolly says Pegger is talking it over with her cats. Oh, I would love to see if Peg has a decent side. She does. I guarantee she does. As vehemently as we believe in what we believe, she believes in the same. Does that make her evil? No. I told you nobody's right. We're all wrong. No. She has a good side. She cares. She's stuck around the whole show. So obviously, she obviously cares. So Peg, here's your chance. Call into the show. Last chance. Maybe she doesn't have the number. I'm trying to find it. I can't find the damn thing. Whoever has the number, put it down. Amy usually does for me. Oh, here it is. 1-804-504-1955. Call in. Come on, Peg. Just call. We've had a good night. We watched Tucker Carlson together. We got 250 some odd people on. The show is growing. Love is in the air. Come on. Come on. 30 seconds. All right. Well, all that does is prove that you don't have conviction. And that's a shame. Folks, do me a favor, if you would not mind. Follow us at The Dumb Show. Go to thedumbshow.com and find where we are at all of our social media. I hope you guys like the new ads. I hope they're not too ostentatious and obnoxious. They're subtle. They're in the corner. You can see the hats and the shirts and all that. You go over to thedumbshow.com. You can get yourself a Don't Unfriend Me hat. You can get yourself a Don't Tread shirt. All that cool stuff. It's all veteran made. The coffee is 100% veteran made. All the designs and logos, it actually use Printful, which is fine, but it is veteran owned. I give 10% back to the Travis Banyan Foundation. You can go on over there and take a look. You can get 10% off by using the code DUMB10, and you can get yourself some cool shirts. We have hoodies, hats, the greatest coffee. The coffee is the bomb. People love the coffee. Go do that. Ryan Samuels, how did we do tonight? That's 2 times in a row. Last night, I think we had close to 30,000 likes and comments. It was incredible. And tonight, it seemed like we had a pretty good night. My numbers locked up, but it's been a pretty good night. So thanks, everybody, for stopping by. We will be on tomorrow live. Leroy will probably stop on by. We'll have a recorded show as well. Maybe we can get Ryan Samuels to come on. Go over to the Ryan Samuels show if you have not done that. Please do. And go stop by. Also, if you would do me one other favor, pfcflags.com. This cool little flag you see behind me here with the firearm on it, that is all made of wood. It is an American-made flag. It is made by Jason and Katie out of their garage. They are good friends. pfcflags.com. They are friends of the show. Stop on by and get yourself a custom made in America United States flag. They also have cool desktop flags. You can see them spread out throughout my office. All amazing stuff. Very reasonably priced. Go do it. Whoops, somebody's calling. Let's see who it is. All right, caller, where are you from? Caller, where are you from? Caller, where are you from? I am here. Where are you? Caller, can you hear me? Caller, you got to turn down what's going on behind you. I can't hear you.
There you go. Sorry about
All right.
that.
No problem. Who am I talking to? What's your name?
Show. I'm Jay.
Jay, where are you from?
Louisville, Kentucky.
Louisville, Kentucky. A whole lot of history in Louisville. All right, man. What do you want to talk about? It's your nickel.
First, I think Biden sucks as president. Okay.
I agree.
I agree with everybody. He's too old.
I think age is immaterial. I think administrations and cabinets make most of the decisions, and they all suck because they're Obama replants. So I hold Biden as much accountable as I hold any stooge in office. He's
Most
horrible. I agree with you.
Are figureheads.
I agree with you. Yes.
The thing is, January 6th, while Trump did not cause a lot of the damage that was done by the mob itself, Trump that day felt as a leader. He could have quelled the argument, and his speech was very, very aggressive, and he was letting them know that I'm marching with you. And when you get a pack mentality like that, that feels threatened and feels like their life's been stolen, their voices are stolen, we as humans become either aggressive or we run. They didn't run.
Fight or flight. Yep.
And most people aren't even willing to talk about the fact that that's what made Trump a bad president, was he refused to say, I'm wrong.
Can you tell me a time that a president has said they are wrong outside of Richard Nixon?
Actually, no, I can't.
Yeah, and that's the problem, right? Is that these people are all usually elites, and they're taught in the same school of business and administration, is that an executive or CEO doesn't admit they're wrong. I don't hold Trump accountable because he doesn't admit he's wrong. I hold Trump accountable because he did so much right and didn't know how to tell the story. And for anyone to say he was a bad president, it just makes my heart sink, because I can go through a litany of why he was the best president from a policy standpoint that we have ever seen in our lifetimes, but was one of the worst.
Agree.
One of the worst. Hold on. Let me finish. Let me finish. He was one of the worst when it came to moral leadership and exemplified what is wrong with the presidency. I agree with you. He's an asshole. I like him because I'm an asshole, but the guy could not sell what he did to the American people because he always stepped on a fucking pile of dog shit every time he tried. All right. I agree with you. I disagree with his speech. I think his speech was contentious. I think it was wrong. I think it wasn't factually accurate, but I don't believe there was anything in there that said storm the Capitol, do harm to police, and go in there and take hostages. No, I don't believe that at all.
Oh, no, that was mob mentality that took over there.
Right.
As a leader, he could have quelled it.
Yes, he could have. Yes. And he did.
And that's where he fell.
His last 2 posts on Twitter, whether you knew before he banned, was calling for peaceful protest, that we respect the police. I'm not sure if you know that, because Twitter and the media never reported that. But at 2:56 and 3:03,
they weren't looking at their phones.
But actually, they were. That's exactly what they were doing. He was 2 hours into his speech when the riot started. So I don't know what people wanted. It was going on, and it began 2 hours after he was done. I understand what you're saying. I get your point, but I think timetables are extremely important here, and a lot of that has never been released. And they need a chronological account of what happened that day. And some sites have done it to the best of their ability, but there's a lot of information that's not there. Donald Trump most assuredly did not do anything within his power to truly stop what happened. But you said it best. Once you have a mob mentality, nobody was going to stop them. Nobody.
I also agree with you on the term limits with Congress.
Yeah.
But they vote on their own term limits, and they're going to turn it down every time.
Well, that's the right.
And I've also noticed something. Since the first Bush, we have had a huge scandal in the White House every year. And while these scandals are going on, Congress is going behind our backs and making laws and doing things that no one knows about.
Dude, Truman dropped. Dude, Truman dropped 2 bombs and killed 736,000 Japanese. There's been freaking, Kennedy slept with women in the Lincoln bedroom. Martin Luther King had sadomasochistic relationships with prostitutes in the White House. Scandal has been ripe through this. John F. Kennedy was addicted to opioids because of his chronic back problems and back issues from the boat accidents. I mean, scandal has been going on in the White House since God was a corporal. I mean, we can go back to as far as you want. My point is that why do we expect anything less from people who are morally ambiguous with what their responsibilities are? Because they have no responsibilities. They have no monikers they have to hit. They have no numbers they have to hit. There's no KPIs. There's no rules that says you have to do this in order to keep your job. They literally are just punching checks and doing whatever they want.
Their own voting law.
That's right. Convicts are running the fucking jailhouse. Absolutely.
So my question is, if Congress is the one that votes on term limits on themselves, how do we get term limits applied?
Yeah. Well, there's
what as the people can we do to make term limits a reality?
Yeah. The first thing and the only thing I will tell you is that term limits are predominantly a conservative platitude. It's something they always talk about, but they never have any teeth behind it. Okay. They never truly try to implement it in place because ultimately Citizens United, are you familiar with what Citizens United is?
Half. I've heard it, but I don't know enough about it.
Sure, that's fine. Citizens United ultimately gives corporations freedom of speech and a voice, and it says that they are, that dollars are speech. And it allows corporations to donate money across state lines, put it into political action committees, big donor money, same thing as Zuckerberg did. Republicans,
senator than it is to change a law or pay taxes.
Say what?
I said it's cheaper to buy a senator most of the time than it is to pay your taxes or pay fines.
But what we're saying here, ultimately, Citizens United is actually pushed through by Republicans. Republicans want that piece of legislation in. Democrats want Citizens United gone because ultimately what it allows is Republicans to get the same amount of donations that the Democrats ultimately get from big tech. It allows the oil companies and everything else to ensure that Republicans are getting the money. My opinion of that is that that also is bred under the same guise as political action committees, unions, and special interest groups, which own the Democrats. Both of those things need to be absolved from politics. That's number one. And we have to set rules based upon what they are responsible for achieving while they're in office. And if they don't do their job and they don't show up for a certain amount of votes and they don't vote along the lines of their constituents and change their vote based upon party politics, they can be held accountable. How do you do it? You need to run. You need to run. You. And that is the only.
I had a few run-ins with the law as a child. So
great, then create a podcast.
I'm out of the running.
Then create a podcast. Then write a blog. Then go endorse somebody who is. Go take a skill set that you have to get involved, because that is the only way. And it's not the federal government that needs to be changed. It's the local and state governments, which ultimately hold the power over the federal because of the 10th Amendment. If we go ahead and impact the cities and the towns, the states will change, the federal government will change. But until we do that and take money out of local government, it's never going to leave big government. But that's the only way you can do it, man. You have to make the change yourself. You have to be like Eli Crane, Navy SEAL, SEAL Team 3. Person I've had on this show, ran in Arizona. He didn't talk about the stolen election, even though he doesn't agree with it. He doesn't talk about January 6th, even though he doesn't agree with the people being held. What he talked about was policy. He talked about immigration. He talked about family values. He talked about making America first. And he won. And he was one of the only Trump-endorsed candidates to absolutely kick ass and win. And what was the first thing that he did? Him and those 21 other people, during McCarthy's appointment to speaker, they abstained and they would not vote, and they held it hostage. And good for fucking them, because that needs to happen all the time.
Oh, and for the people commenting, I'm actually not Peg.
No, it's not Peg.
Yeah, I ran across your show. I've only seen it for like 5 minutes, and half of what you said is extremely intriguing to me, so...
Don't take people personal. That Ryan Samuels is my buddy, and he's also seems to be my bodyguard lately. So he's Marine, and he believes in two things: eating crayons and polishing boots. So he's always eating crayons. Listen, man, I appreciate you. I'm gonna go watch my Colorado Avalanche game. What was your first name again? I'm sorry, I missed
Jay,
it.
like
Jay.
the letter.
Yep, and you're from
Yes,
Louisville,
sir.
Kentucky. I will remember that. It's not Louisville. God, people.
Louisville. There's 100 ways
Louisville.
of pronouncing it.
I know.
Louisville.
Louisville. I know. Louisville.
It depends on your accent.
Yep. I try to tell people that. They get bad when I say nuclear instead of nuclear. Nuclear. I can't even say it. I say nuclear.
Iron.
And they iron. Wash. Tomato.
I wash
Patata.
my clothes in the washing machine.
That's right. All right, brother. Listen, it's great talking to you. Thanks for your views. I appreciate it. Everybody, Jay, I'll talk to you soon. I'm going to cut you loose, man. Call me back some other time when I have more time, okay?
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.
All right, buddy. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching the Don't Unfriend Me Show. You can go to thedumbshow.com. Go pick yourself up some cool stuff. Listen, we are now ranked in the top 10% on Spotify on our video podcast. We're excited. We actually beta tested it for Spotify, and we are ranked. Go over to Spotify. Go see us on Rumble, YouTube, wherever. If you would not mind, please follow, like, share, and subscribe. Go buy some hats and shirts. I'll see you tomorrow at 8 o'clock. New time for our show. We're going to be doing it at 8 o'clock every single night. I will go out like I always do, and I think we're going to do... let's see, Veteran Crisis Hotline. If you know a veteran who's in trouble, needs help, please take down this number, watch this video. God bless everybody. Thank you for your support. It's awesome to have so many people on, man. I'm pumped up and I love it. Thank you. Good night.
I'm David Boreanaz with the Cast of SEAL team, and we have an important message for returning vets.
We want you to know if you're struggling to cope, there's help and it's just a phone call away.
The Veterans Crisis Line is staffed with experienced professionals who know your struggles.
There's no greater sacrifice in service to our country. We're able to enjoy our freedoms because of it.
Your service is important, you are important.
For vets and their families, the Veterans Crisis Line is here to help 24 hours a day. Please call